Call to order, the meeting to order in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. At 7:01, I'm gonna go with that time rather than that time. I need that a little bit more. All right. Okay.
Someone's watching, just a.
Someone's already on. Okay, roll call. I believe we are all here except for Mayor Kramer. Thank you all for coming.
All right, well, I'll put him in the absent column then.
Okay.
Getting over on mouse.
Unless we need the roll call for the meeting, for the.
No, I think if Chuck's okay with that, I'll just introduce Cleo real quick, if that's okay.
Okay, that's fine, yes.
Well, then you'll have to introduce yourself anyway.
That's
So,
right, we
there
should
we go.
introduce ourselves. Okay.
So, this is Cleo, she's our intern for this semester, she's been with us since January, right? So it's been a while, she just hasn't been able to make it to a Trails meeting, because she's very busy, of course. Well, I'll let you talk about yourself more, but she's been a great help, so it's been really nice having her around.
Oh, thanks, Tara. I'm a senior at Rutgers. I'm studying environmental business economics. And in the fall, I'm going to Duke to get a master's of environmental management there. So
Cool. Great. Good luck. Congratulations.
Yeah, so she's been working with me on, she's working on a farmland application, she's helping me update the master plan, she reviewed some of the pathway and trails plan, site visits, walking the trails, so she's been doing a lot.
Excellent. Great. All right, so I guess we'll introduce ourselves to you since you introduced yourself to us. Jim Kuligowski, Chair of the Trails Committee.
I'm Vanessa Jones, I'm Vice Chair.
I'm Chuck Martin, I'm secretary.
I'm Mark Fortin. I'm just a committee person.
I'm Tom Lewis, I'm just a committee person.
And Maria Orleski.
And John Hurley, I'm also with the Open Space Committee.
nice to meet you all.
Who's feeding you?
Okay, approval of the March 2019 minutes.
I have a couple of questions,
Okay.
actually relating to the minutes for clarification purposes. One of them is that a lot of this information that I put in regarding this new maintenance plan, I actually extracted from Tara's report to the Open Space Committee the week following this from the video. But I'm very interested in this process for scientific reasons, among other things. So I was going to ask to get the files that you have of the herbicide guide.
Oh, yes.
That he put together a proposal for this.
Yes, so I emailed them to you, they didn't come through, they're kind of large, I
Apparently
guess.
didn't come through. Actually,
Okay.
I brought a hard drive. We can
Oh,
download
perfect.
it.
Oh, yes, then I'll just transfer
That'd
them
be
to you.
good,
Yep, sure.
As far as that goes, and then my other question, which I got from watching the open space video,
Hey, Mayor.
did, what's his name, Bobby Puska's nephew really take out 71 deer in that field in one night?
I don't know if it was in one night, was it in?
Must have had a special
That's a lot of killing in one night.
Yeah.
That's a lot of bullets.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
that's what I
yeah.
thought. I replayed that part of the open space committee minutes several times.
It might have
And I
sounded, yeah.
thought it heard 71.
I
And,
could see in one weekend, but I don't know about
well,
one night.
it's that big cornfield at the corner of
Yeah.
Skillman and Middlebush Road.
Was I at that meeting?
You may have been, yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember that either.
It was sort of like, I got this bombshell to tell you, and I thought, well, that's pretty interesting.
I don't know if that's even, I mean, if I'm doing the math in my head, I mean, if it's 12 hours, is it like?
Well,
That's 6 an hour.
That's 6 an
That's
hour.
one every 10 minutes.
I do know the person who did the deer cull at Duke Farms, and they took out over 1,000 deer in a week.
Okay, so.
That's multiple hunters.
One hunter.
One hunter.
One hunter who has turned out to be like the world's
No,
best
71.
guy.
Okay, but then what do they do with all the carcasses?
He hauled them to a meat processor, and they donated all the meat to homeless food shelters and that sort of thing. And so I was also sort of curious as if he did take out 71, what did he do with all the carcasses?
Right.
So
I don't
anyway.
know, yeah, I'm not sure
Right, well,
about that.
okay, my curiosity satisfied. Are there any corrections to the, or additions to the minutes that you would like to see?
No, I read them when you sent them and they
It's
look good to
pretty
me, I mean, very,
Mhm.
Well, thank you very much.
wasn't there.
I'll forward them, I'll remove the draft
Okay, and I'll post.
watermark and send them to Tara then.
Okay, so I make a motion to, accept approve the minutes from the March 2019 meeting. John, okay, any second? Vanessa?
Vanessa.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the March 2019 meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
I have to abstain. just
Oh, yeah,
because
that's right,
I wasn't
yeah, yeah.
there.
I will also abstain, I also was not there.
Okay, that's true, yeah, okay, very good. Well, the motion, let's vote again, with all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And 2 abstentions, okay. Motion passes. All right, so, do we make make a motion to open the meeting to the public?
I make a motion, we open the the
Second.
public?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting is now open to the public.
Okay.
Okay.
Nothing from the fourth estate?
Bill's the public.
Bill's the public.
Please sit where the camera can see you.
Why?
Oh.
Highland
Okay.
We try to be open.
Well, okay, if that's the case, let's make a motion to close the meeting to the public, but if anyone does come in later, we can reopen this
Sounds good
agenda
to me.
item.
I'll
Okay.
make a motion to close the meeting to the public.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Okay, new business. Tara,
Okay.
like to,
Sure.
Start with
So as you all know, the Somerset County Planning Division is doing a study that's been funded by the North Jersey Transportation Planning Association, so NJTPA. Basically, the federal government has a metropolitan planning agency in regions, and ours happens to be called the NJTPA. And they can pass through federal funding for really large scale and infrastructure projects, so transportation projects in particular. They did receive some funding to look at alternative transportation methods, specifically biking, hiking, walking, connecting trails, connecting roadways to trails. So they've been working on this for a while, and I think some of you took their survey initially. So now the second public meeting is coming up. It's tomorrow night. I have it up here on the screen. I put an agenda out here. Everyone is welcome to come. I'm going to be there, so I can bring any concerns you have or questions if you're interested. Yes.
Can you suggest an alternate night than Thursdays?
I know, right?
and not Tuesdays either.
I
Tuesdays
kept
are bad
saying-
now.
Yeah, I know.
No, whatever, yeah.
I was there the other day and
I
I
could
kept
skip a
saying,
Tuesday. It's
I'll
hard
see you
to skip a
tomorrow, I'll
Thursday.
see you tomorrow. They're like, not tomorrow, Thursday. So like maybe in my mind too, I was like, no, not Thursday, but, it's in the county administration building. So what they've done right now, just to kind of tell you what's going on, they've created all these maps of potential trails for walking, potential trails for biking, bike lanes, potential bike routes, and they've done it by municipality. So Mark Healy, who's the township planner, and I met with the county the other day, and they showed us the map that they're proposing for Franklin Township. Now, a lot of it, as you can imagine, is what we have in our Pathways and Trails plan and what they've been working on, so they wouldn't give me the map just yet. I had to just kind of look and look at their draft. But they are proposing a lot of bike connections and bike paths in the northern part of Franklin. They also are proposing some of the trails connections that we've been looking at, but two I thought, interesting things they were proposing. One, they like the idea of the north-south trail, and so they want to put that down as a proposed trail in Franklin Township, so that's good. In their plan. Now granted, what they do in their plan doesn't, it can inform our plan, it doesn't bind us to anything, but having something like that on a document that's funded by the TPA really opens you up to the possibility of more funding, so it's good to have that on there. And so, we told them, yes, that's a great project that the town's been looking at, and please put it on there. The other one is one that I didn't know about. It's called the Somerset to Shores Trail. Have you ever heard of this trail, anybody? Somerset to Shore, S-H-O-R-E, like the shore. And so basically, the Regional Plan Association, which is like the oldest planning agency, I think, in the country, they put together a report in 2017, it was called Accessing Nature. And they created this idea of a trail, a regional trail called the Somerset to Shore, and the starting point is in Franklin Township. The ending point is in Point Pleasant. And so obviously it would take many, many, many years and many partners and millions of dollars to get it done. But they asked us, you know, do you think the township would be okay with us showing this connection in Franklin Township? It might never happen, but having it on paper is.
Where's the connection?
From, you know, I don't have it in front of me right now, but it's from the, let me look and see. It's
Will
from a point
we
of the DNR
get this
canal.
copy, this draft of
Yes,
of
we
the
will.
Franklin portion
We
before
will.
they do anything
We
officially?
will, yeah, so they took some staff comments and then they're gonna give us the individual maps to bring back for, you know, comment.
Yeah, if you can get them, if
I'll get a
they give
copy
you an
of it.
electronic copy,
Yes.
and we can see it ahead of the next meeting, that'd be great.
Absolutely, and while I'm talking to you guys, I'll see if I can Google that little part. But it's a really interesting idea, so I talked to the township manager, you know, we've never heard of it, but is it okay for us to show it on the plan? And I mean, the general thought is basically, why not show it? Because if it ever comes about, you know, having something on paper is really a good way to, you know, memorialize it and get funding for it. So those are two interesting points, I thought. And then tomorrow night at this public hearing, they'll be unveiling, you know, a lot of their municipal maps and talking about what their progress is so far, and then, you know, how they wanna move forward, because after the third public hearing, they'll have the adoption hearing.
So
Oh,
where
yeah.
is the meeting and what time is it?
It's tomorrow night, 6 to 8,
Oh, thank you.
Freeholders Meeting Room.
Is there a copy of it, or is it there?
Yeah, I have
There was
it.
one attached to her.
Yeah.
Here, this one.
Okay, thanks.
And then the agenda, I put on the table if you're interested in it, so, you know, they're gonna have a welcome and introductions, but the first part is an interactive review, so what they're gonna do is have all the municipal maps enlarged, and you can like walk around and look, and,
So did you say this is the second, and there has to be 3?
there's gonna be a third public hearing just for
This
final.
counts as a public hearing?
Yeah, the third public hearing is gonna be, you know, like final input, and then they'll have an adoption public hearing, which will be separate of comments.
It's like, if you can't make this meeting, will they post like the minutes or?
I believe
What's
they're
that?
I believe they're recording it as well, but yeah, they'll post the minutes, and anything they send to me, I'll forward on to you as well.
Great, okay, yeah, forward to the committee, and that'd be
yeah.
great.
Yeah, I
Or
will,
information, at least a link, or at least say, hey, check this out on, whatchamacallit.
yeah.
Just another question with this Somerset to Shores, is there any reason why they chose Somerset? I mean, just.
Yes.
You know, I don't know,
That's what I was
because
thinking, is it, yeah.
honestly,
Or Franklin, but-
that was the first time I had heard of it, I never had heard of it
I never heard of
before.
it either.
So this is the
You
report.
mentioned the towpath, was that?
I
Yeah,
believe
that's
it's
what I
from
was
the
thinking.
towpath.
If you tie into the towpath, then you can go from the Delaware to Point
Trenton,
Pleasant.
yeah,
Right.
I mean, if they start in Somerset and it intersects anywhere in the towpath, you're good to go from the Delaware down to the ocean.
But it ends
Go
in New
from
Brunswick.
Lambertville to.
Hmm?
But it ends in New Brunswick, the towpath.
I know that, but if
Not
they're
the other
gonna,
direction.
if this new proposed trail starts in Somerset and goes to Point
Oh,
Pleasant.
going, okay,
Oh, here it
okay.
is, okay. So
That's
they
not the way I
take-
get to Point Pleasant, now I gotcha.
Alright, so it's, so it's
Walk
number
all the way.
7.
I'm going every day team.
So there's the, I mean, this is not, nothing is, I mean, it's a line at this point, nothing's been, but this is what's called shore, I got it backwards, shore to Somerset connector. So it'd be 60 miles, largely incomplete, and they're looking to do it along utility, rail, and road right-of-way lines. Oh yeah, it says
So
route
that's that
between
little
the DNR.
7 segment that's
Yeah,
drawn in there?
so it says an east-west proposed route between DNR Canal Trail and the Jersey Shore Trail. Utilizes number of existing corridors, model known as Rail with Trail, runs from Point Pleasant to Franklin with connections to Pigeon Swamp State Park, Monmouth Battlefield, and a number of historic farms. Then they wanna connect that to this proposed Henry Hudson Trail, which is number 8 on the map.
Can you zoom in,
Yes.
please? Thank you.
Oh, too much.
Well, that's pretty good.
Oh, too little. Okay. How's that?
Yeah.
So, again, this is a vision that, you know, this RPA came up with a while back, but, you know, the county was wondering, you know, would we want to include that on the map? And, you know,
Please.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why not?
why not? And it'll just show as proposed, you know, so.
And so the section in Franklin is towpath only?
It says from DNR Canal, yeah, towpath. I don't think they have like a direct, like, hey, we should start it right here. I think, you know, it would be conceptual at this
Conceptual.
point, but it's gotta be
Yeah.
somewhere along the towpath.
Yeah, well,
Do you want me to
Can you
Franklin is right here.
Yep.
Can you lower it a little? Can you lower it a little? Good, thank you. I mean, that's, there is Franklin,
Right,
right there, and this is,
Oh, yes,
this
this
is
is
the canal path, so it actually looks like it starts at the canal path, but then
Yeah,
it almost looks like it crosses
Looks neat.
Colonial Park.
Or 6 Mile Run.
Or 6 Mile Run, yeah. So either one.
That looks like
Maybe
6 Mile.
Run.
Yeah.
Right.
It's an interesting concept.
And then follows our north-south proposal.
Yeah,
It does.
Maybe we could get
Yeah.
them to fund some of that.
yeah.
that would be nice.
Right.
Yeah, it's a really interesting concept, so when they brought it to my attention, I of course talked to Bob Warnlocker about it, and he was interested in it as well, so.
It almost looks like it, because if we could get, we've talked about possible routes for the north-south, we never really settled on anything before, but the idea was to sort of parallel South Middlebush. But then, if you think about it, when we get down towards what will become the recreation park, but is now our Franklin Park natural area, and then Bunker Hill, you're connected at that point to Middlesex. That's the border with Middlesex, because as soon as you cross 27, you're in South and North Brunswick.
Right, true.
So that's really close, like the parking lot for Bunker Hill natural area is super close. Then you could walk from that little parking lot along Bunker Hill Road and then move on from there. Now where they take it in the next county and township is outside of our
Yeah.
purvey, but that's a
Yeah.
good possible route.
Yeah, very true, I mean, I'm sure this plan was sent to the county for review at some point, but luckily, someone in its review came across this, cause it's only referenced in this section, so. It's a pretty interesting concept, so yeah, so if you're free to go tomorrow, let me know, or you actually don't have to let me know, you can just go, but I'll be there as well, so if you think of anything between now and then,
We'll shoot
you
an
know,
email.
yeah, call me or text me or whatever, yeah.
I plan on going, so.
Okay, alright, great. So that is that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Move on to National Trails Day.
Okay, so National Trails Day this year is June first, Saturday, June first. I can get us, last year I registered us on the website for National Trails Day, so I'll do that again. I guess we probably should decide though where you want to have the walk this year, if you wanna have any specific events. And the other thing I want to talk about with National Trails Day is that we do have a printing vendor on, and so if you have any requests, I know there was a request in the past to make a specific kind of signage or display or something like that.
Yeah.
We've not, I thought we already picked where we were gonna go this year. Or is my memory such that everything's gone so fast that it's last year's discussion
I don't
that I'm
think so, I
already-
don't have anything in the notes, and last year we were at
We talked about
Griggstown.
We were at Grigstown.
We were at Griggstown last year.
We got rained out, and
Yep.
then we did it later.
So, does anyone have any ideas about where you'd like to do it? And what time?
Griggstown has the largest parking lot. Is that?
We did it last year, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
We
it's-
should-
we
we
did
should
it.
rotate.
Butler Road, yeah, it will take 6 cars, so, and you gotta pack them in.
Bunker Hill doesn't have a very big parking lot, but there's decent parking nearby.
Well, I was out yesterday at the Bunker Hill Environmental Center, and I don't quite understand the relationship between that and the trails, but, because that seems to be a part of the, school system.
I believe so.
The
But
environmental
there's
center
actually a
is-
fair amount of parking there. And I did go on the trail, leading out of there through the woodland areas. And, there's quite a bit of trail in the woodlands areas there, but then you can get down to what's the Brown Trail, which connects with our, Griggstown grassland trails. And I went down both ends of that. I thought I was on the John Clyde Memorial Trail at the end there, but now I just looked at the maps again, got confused. But you can get into the Griggstown area there. The Public Works has apparently put in this gravel road that is now part of the Brown Trail there. And you'd have to walk down the road, but actually it's woodland setting.
I don't think we have a trail map for that though, do we?
Well, it's on 2 trail maps. It's on, the,
It's on Bunker Hill
It's on
and
Bunker
it's
Hill.
it's on
And it's
the
on
Bunker Hill
Okay.
part, and it's also on, I think it's
Okay.
also on Bridgetown,
Yeah.
part of it as well.
Okay.
It's actually, I have this GPS app that I use to track my movements, and I can create waypoints and whatever. And all of our trails are on that. It's just like default
Mhm.
map. I don't know who gave it to them, but, so apparently it's, you know, pretty well documented.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Chuck, you wanna take a look at this? This is the town.
Do you
this
like
map I
to
have.
do
Does that make sense, or?
Well,
Do you like to
I
have
guess
the
I don't know
long-
who's in charge of the
long
Bunker
trail
Hill
area?
Environmental Center, and, could we,
It's not in use anymore.
Use that.
currently. It's not in use, I don't know if it's even in a condition
There-
to be used.
there are people,
It was last time we checked.
there are people living in the house there. Is that the naturalist?
That's a private home.
I think she's
The
a
national-
caretaker.
Oh, she's the
Town owns
caretaker.
it.
Oh, okay, where they're like caretaker or residents of it?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Max is.
Yeah, Max did it.
No, we need the Griggstown,
That's right.
map, Jim. This is the Bunker Hill trails that Vanessa monitors. You actually can cross the road
Right.
and go down,
It gets
to,
very confusing.
to the subdivision. And I was just there today, in fact, because I was trying to find some entrances and so on. But there's a stream crossing, and the stream crossing gets you onto the, Bunker Hill Trail. It's right below the combination soccer field, basketball court, whatever. And is that township, or is that,
And I think that's the development.
that's the development, something the development
Yeah.
put in?
And if you take the trail from Bunker Hill going to Griggstown, you have to go through the neighborhood, you have to go past that field area. Like, I literally had, like, somebody had done like a series of posts online, that's the only way I could figure it out.
Yeah. well,
So I don't know, I certainly wouldn't want to, for National Trails Day, go anywhere that was confusing to one of us.
Exactly.
Mm,
Well, we did, I think you guys were at Negri the year before,
No.
right, or no?
Need the Griggstown.
So Bunker Hill,
You've
so it
been
was
to Bunker Hill.
Bricktown
Okay.
last
Bricktown.
year, Franklin Park the year before,
Okay,
and then it
We did
was,
Middle Bush and we did
And
Inman.
and
Middle Bush,
Inman.
Inman, Middle Bush.
cause I thought we talked about doing Negri, did we? Is that what
We
we
did
talked?
Negri a year with, because I thought John Luce came and helped guide a walk there or something,
I think that
right?
I was,
Maybe we've done the
Tour.
circuit and we just start again.
Oh, I definitely think we've done
Yeah.
all the
Negri's
places.
got enough parking, probably,
yeah.
Except maybe
what you wanna do.
Butler.
I was gonna say Butler but that's a difficult one for parking.
Yeah, there's a nice trail, and in fact, I could take a group during that event, I could take a group there, you know, if they wanted to use their own cars, and I could take them out on the Yellow Trail, which is a very nice trail.
What about this? This is an idea that just literally popped into my head this very second, so it might not be good. So that's the opening day of the farmer's market as well, right? We have transportation that picks people up and takes them to the farmer's market. Could we have that same transportation to pick people up and take them to like National Trails Day, but then they'd also be at the farmer's market, so maybe they would stop in and buy some things too? And we already have a bus in use. It would kind of be like double dipping with the bus, but it's usually not too many people on it.
Yeah, I don't know the parameters on how we use the bus.
We
who's
usually,
paying for it?
I'm sorry, what?
Who's paying for the bus?
Oh, like, I'm sorry, well, it's a township bus, so I guess it's coming out, well, the driver comes out of the farm, like the open space budget, because it's for the farmer's market.
Okay.
So it could work, and the bus is usually empty, not empty, I should say, but not a lot of people.
And the bus goes around town and picks people
Well,
up?
no, last year it only went to the senior housing developments, but we're trying to expand the route this year. So
Okay.
I'm just thinking out loud, if maybe
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah, but
way we
The problem
can.
is, they come to the farmer's market, they expect to be there X amount of time, now the bus is off
Right,
doing
you're right,
something else.
that's a good point. That is, so, yes, you're right.
What about having multiple venues?
We did that one year,
Mhm.
but it seemed to,
They're
we
not
split it up
really-
and tried to have
Yeah, I'm
everybody
just
at each
trying
of
to
their
figure-
trails and waiting, and then nobody came to any.
Dilutes the,
Right.
yeah.
And, I guess most people went to one, which was Negri, because the person who did Negri set up and had, you know, I don't know, they just had a lot of fanfare and got the word out amongst people they knew, so they got some people they knew there. But otherwise, there was no random drop-ins at any of the other trails, and a lot of us sat around the parking lot for an hour waiting for
For
nobody.
nothing.
Right, So I think we're better off, we seem to do better when we focus on one, advertise it, and have a few hands to pitch in there to take turns, or somebody waits while somebody leads a walk or whatever.
Right.
That seemed to work better.
Well, could we do it at Middle Bush, and then if people wanted to walk to the farmer's market, they could? Or
Where's the farmer's
I
market?
mean,
how is it, or?
Where, is it here
Where?
at this corner?
It's at
here?
the
Middle Bush is
corner,
right
So
yeah.
this corner, so I guess it's close. by.
okay, I have a crazy idea. So now, I know it's not a Franklin Trail, but, you know, I wasn't at our last meeting, but I was the one before that with open space. And it was kind of brought to our attention, like the whole idea of people not knowing about the towpath, not being aware, you know, 6 Mile Run, the towpath. I know those aren't our trails, but they are trails in Franklin, which are readily used by people from outside of Franklin. And so I'm just putting it out there as a possibility to do a hike. Like, we could have people park at the Van Wickle House and do a hike on the towpath. And if we're looking to get people out and about on trails, it's an idea.
I agree, I don't think we have to be chauvinistic to Franklin trails. It's resources
Actually,
available to
Yeah,
Franklin
Van Wickle's
Heights.
a nice location, actually, for, we could set up
Find your
exhibits
eagle.
there. Yeah, but like, a fair number of people could park there, there's no question.
What about,
The
okay,
bunny jamborees
how's
will be
the
this weekend,
trails
you
at
can
Middle
still
Bush?
park
We
it.
had people go there,
There
is there
would-
something to
there-
see?
there were- If they were gonna
At
do
this point?
anything at Middle Bush, there would be some prep work that would have to be done, let's just leave it at that.
Cause it's just such a natural magnet in town for all the kids are there, the
Well,
parents are there,
the whole.
maybe we could grab them,
Well, again, that's in the back, the trails are more in the front part.
Right. but we've done that before, but maybe it's
No,
time.
again, I'm not.
I don't know how good the trails are right now.
Well, I don't think anyone, other than a handful of people, even know that there's trails there.
Consider it a trail, yeah, they probably don't consider it a trail, some of it's like a gas line,
Well,
so it's
that's,
like,
see, that's
it's
the
like
other
a-
thing, you've got the gas line that goes through it,
yeah.
you've got trails that splinter off the gas line, that intersect the gas line, but, there really isn't a well-defined quote-unquote Middle Bush map, which, you know, which I think would help.
And there's no trail markers, I mean,
No,
because it's just
there's-
one,
Right,
it doesn't veer off to any place.
Right.
Van Wickle though is an interesting idea
It
too,
is.
because
That's-
maybe
that's
we
like
could
that.
partner with the Meadows somehow and they can do some kind of like outdoor, like before you get on the trail, or some kind of like history, even if it's just like a history,
Combine it.
sign, like, what's the name of that
Van Wickle at
park
the
in
bottom.
Basking Ridge? Lord
Rest of our
Sterling,
trail, yeah.
they do a history walk in November, and like as you
Mhm.
walk through, I mean, they'll have reenactors
So-
there, and they'll have like
It's the bottom of the
toys
bottom.
that kids would play with
Okay.
from,
Yeah, just don't.
you know, those times.
And that would be
I've
important,
been
cause
on,
the
so
towpath
I've
is
been
just straight out and
Yeah.
straight back, so you have to kind of jazz it up a little bit for kids. to keep
Yeah,
them
maybe we
engaged,
could, that's what we're saying, maybe we
otherwise
can
it's kinda
partner
boring.
with like the Meadows to do kind of like a history walk, kind of like make it,
Mhm.
you know, incorporate some Franklin history and do it on the towpath, that could
Mhm.
work. And we have enough time that we could try and figure
Well,
something like that out.
Vanessa, you also mentioned the 6 Mile Run trail.
Mm-hmm.
The parking's good at the Blackwell's Mills Ranger Station parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine on a nice June 1st, though, we're gonna get, there'll be a lot of people using it, but they're not
Yeah.
necessarily using it to see us
Yeah,
and
we'll
go on a
have
walk with us.
A lot of bikers.
Lot of
Right, there's a
bikers.
ton of bikers. But
It's
it's not
great.
just for biking.
It's not.
It's perfectly acceptable for
Right.
walking.
Mhm.
So we could walk there, and you have canal towpath access, so you could point out the towpath,
Mm-hmm.
but take people on a walk on, we could take people on a walk on a 6 Mile Run trail.
And there's a lot of parking there, so it is a
There's a
good.
good amount of parking.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can use the old Valette, or what was that, Jake's Lane, isn't there
Yeah, we
parking
could do
there?
it at the Jake's Lane.
The
I don't know what
entrance
kind of
there.
parking, how much parking.
It's not as big as the other one. It's not as much as the Blackwell's Mills and.
Is it smaller than Butler or bigger than Butler?
Oh, much bigger. No, it's a big lot
The
here.
Jake's Lane one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well,
Oh,
then
yeah.
that's a decent amount.
Because I don't think too many bikers use that, that's
No,
more or
they
less
do.
flat.
The bikers are
Oh, do they use
place.
that trail, or do they use that parking lot?
both.
Oh, they do, okay.
Both.
There's
But
a lot of
it's
room
almost
there.
it depends on the time of day. June 1st is a Sunday.
Saturday.
Saturday.
Saturday morning is when we usually do
Yeah,
these.
the last few years, we've been at that lot in the summer,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it gets pretty congested.
Blackwell's or
congested.
Jake's?
Blackwell's.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, Blackwell's is way busy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I still, yeah, I think like there's as far, I think, overflow at the Blackwell's Mills and Canal lot, there's more parking there, and then there's also then the parking along Blackwell's Mills. right? Like kinda like the towpath overflow
Yes,
parking.
the towpath.
So there's definitely, I think, more guaranteed parking there.
Yeah,
The lot is decent on,
and at Jake's
say
Lane,
Jenks, I say
you
Jacques.
can't just
Um,
point out the towpath, whereas you can from
Right.
Blackwell's Mills.
Correct,
Right.
yeah,
The
it's
other thing
pretty
about
far
Blackwell
away.
Mills is that the historic commission has the house there that, you know, you could, might be able to get a docent or something too.
That's like mostly office space now though.
It's just office space?
I don't think it's used for anything but like office, yeah.
I don't know, a member of ours, of this commission took us through last year.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
they have set up a little museum.
Ah. I know the Tree Foundation used to have an office in there. I never, okay, great. That's great.
I-
No, I'm talking about years ago, so you're more recent than I am.
Well, something to check out maybe.
Yeah.
That sounds like a plan.
Everybody
Which
feel
one?
good
There's
about
so many
that?
on the table.
Blackwell's Mills, I think,
Blackwell's
is my
Mills.
suggestion.
Okay.
So we're
Ranger
basically,
station
Yeah,
parking lot?
I could do a biology walk on the towpath if,
oh, that would be
someone
great.
wants.
Now,
Also-
let's not pretend that we get good turnouts for these events.
Right.
Like, we tend to very much outnumber the people who attend,
That's right.
so
This
I
might
don't
be our
know.
breakout year, you
Yeah.
never know.
One
It
of these
could
years.
be, and maybe, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, I don't want us to like, as far as like having multiple
Yeah.
walks.
The thing about there is you may get enough people who are there for other reasons, maybe with their family to walk, they might join in.
Yeah,
Right.
It's
Yeah.
Spontaneous.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And I guess, I mean, Tara, I don't know if we could get more maps, if we could get more, towpath maps and 6 Mile Run maps.
yeah.
They
sure,
haven't, I know, my sister-in-law works, in a park up north in Somerset County, and so she's shown me, she's given me a couple of like 6 Mile Run maps, and they're coming out with a
Okay.
new towpath map.
yeah. Okay,
But whatever, if we could get some to give out to people that day, I think that would, if
Yeah.
we're gonna go with that one, that would be really nice.
okay, yeah.
It's
I
all
can-
available online too, so we could also, share the links, with people.
We could, I will point out that that spot is atrocious for any kind of service.
Oh,
Okay.
Like, you
Right.
can't even do a hotspot, because cell service is awful down at that portion of the canal. Really awful.
Blackwell's Mills?
Like, that spot, I drive that road every day, I commute
I
that
think you're
road
thinking
every
of
day.
Griggstown.
No, the spot driving between Butler Road and Blackwell's Mills Road, I lose my calls every day,
What
Yeah.
service do you
Verizon.
Calls, not not
Calls.
internet, okay.
But we've tried to, if you go and open your phone while parked there, because we have a rest stop there for the Tour de Franklin,
Mm.
we get no service. So we've had to figure out for Tour de Franklin, having to have an offline capability to do
Okay.
things there for registration, because you can't bring a Wi-Fi hotspot there, it doesn't work, you can't do anything there.
Even people have even people have different providers have problems?
Yeah, because we got like the Wi-Fi hotspot, we didn't get through Verizon,
Yeah,
it
it's
still
just a
doesn't.
regular.
I've never
We've
noticed
had
that.
trouble
Yeah.
there.
I've never had that problem.
Yeah, that
So
spot is
how
bad.
should I advertise this when I register it? Like how do we describe this location? Cause is it like a well-known?
Yeah, it's the, I don't know what you would call it, it used to be the old ranger station.
Ranger station?
So I think-
Nobody knows what it
I
is.
think the new
Ranger station at
sign-
Blackwell's Mills and.
It's the
Canal Road.
intersection of Blackwell's and Canal.
It's just a little bit off of the intersection, but yeah.
Well, which
100
trail are you
yards.
gonna walk?
We'll just walk, whatever one
Why don't we
goes
do
up
the blue trail?
along.
The parking lot.
I wouldn't take the one that you have to walk along Canal Road and then dip in.
That's shut
That's
down.
terrible.
Yeah,
That's section's shut down.
Oh,
It's
it
not
is,
even on the
okay.
map anymore.
But I would
So
walk
the
the
one
one
for
that
the
just,
parking-
Well, it's
yeah,
the
the
blue
one that
trail.
leaves the parking lot and goes up along the edge of, parallels Van Cleef, Blackwell's Mills up towards Van Cleef Way for a ways.
So,
And then you can tuck into the woods over there.
Ranger station at intersection of Blackwell's Mills and Canal Road.
it's,
Near,
it's not
I would say
200 feet.
near.
yeah, I think, Tara, I think the sign says DNR Canal State Park, 6 Mile Run.
Right.
Okay,
So I think I would go by what that new sign says there.
DNR,
DNR Canal State
Canal
Park,
State Park.
6 Mile Run.
I can email you the exact address, because we put it on the Tour de Franklin
oh, that
website
would be
every
great.
year.
And it's the blue trail.
Blue Trail. And what time are you guys thinking about?
10, nobody wants to get up early.
So I had just, I have, there's a, New Brunswick has a cyclovia that day, and my school's doing our 20th anniversary walkathon that day. So unless we do it really early, I'm not gonna be able to be there.
Oh,
Sorry. I
Now,
know,
would you do
but-
the entire blue trail? Cause that's,
No.
kinda long.
The whole blue trail's 4 miles
Yeah.
to the bridge, if you go to the bridge.
Yeah.
So if you take that blue trail all the way through to the bridge, the big bridge.
Mhm.
No, I'm sorry, not even that far.
It's pretty,
Yeah, it's
pretty
not bad.
long,
That's
it's a
4
long trail,
miles.
so I don't know, you probably go out, turn around and come back, or is that?
But 4
Would that be-
miles
Yeah.
with a group is, even with a relatively
eight out
slow
back, though.
people, how's that?
And it's, I mean, 8 out and back,
Oh, it's 4 miles one way up
4
to
miles to the bridge.
Okay.
So we definitely wanna turn around before we go too
Yeah.
far. Just keep people alive,
Right.
because
Yeah.
we start losing them.
Does the Blue Trail go through the field?
Along the farm
It goes
field edge.
through
Yes.
the woods, around a couple fields,
It's internal to the field, not along the fence row there
along the what?
It's not inside the field, it's all field edge.
Field edge.
oh, okay.
And they've,
But it
and a
goes
few
into the
years ago, they,
woods.
It
goes
does.
into the
It
woods.
eventually goes into the woods, but
Yeah.
I don't know how many miles it is to the point
To
where
get
you
to
go
the
into the
point.
woods.
yeah, you'd get into the woods though, you
The
guys,
first
Pretty
section.
fast, I think.
Yeah.
yeah, cause you
It's a
go
mile,
out
maybe.
and then it's an open spot and it kinda goes through like what will be like, butterfly, like.
You get all the way up to Van Cleef on the field edge before you
Right.
cut in.
Then you cut
Long
into the
before you
woods.
cut, right, and then you cut in after you get to Van Cleef, it cuts in.
When was the last time you were there?
A couple of years ago, I guess, maybe.
Cause they have, the Jorba did some changes.
Okay.
They put like, have you been there with the switchbacks in the
I
woods?
saw some, more of those were on the other side, but maybe they've added more
Or on the
inside.
blue, I mean, it's been a few years, they've had them there for a few years, for sure.
Okay.
We'd have to look at the map and just definitely.
Or get out there and walk it before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And figure out
Yeah.
where
Make
it's
sure
at.
something good
Who's
for
gonna
people to get
volunteer?
engaged.
I'll double check that I'm available, but if I'm available, I'll be happy to do the walk.
Or take your bike, practice for the Tour de Franklin.
Right, I never ride the Tour de Franklin because I'm driving it.
He's in the
So are you
satellite.
thinking
that's
10
right.
10 a.m. again, 10 a.m. till noon? Is that
It
what
was
we did?
just one person's thought.
Yeah, I think that's what we did last.
One person who
well, we were
doesn't
gonna
like to
do.
get up at the crack of dawn.
Yeah, I agree.
10 is the crack of dawn for you?
Yeah, 10 to start the walk, because I'd have to get out there before that and grab some breakfast. I'd say 9's the crack of dawn for me. On the weekend.
Maybe we should.
Cleo, what do you think the crack of dawn
balloons
is?
On a weekend,
Oh,
probably.
yeah. On the way
Yeah, there we go,
down.
that's what I'm talking about.
But we really need to check this trail out, make sure that
Yeah, I
we're
was
taking
thinking the same
beginners out
thing.
there and back, that they see something and come back without spending too much time in the heat or whatever.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think
Yeah,
I think it's a mix, it's a mix of, we can pull it up online, if you wanna, do you wanna pull up 6 Mile Run trail map?
Yeah.
You just Google it, you'll find it. There,
And
Or
is
just
it
Google
inundated
Maps
with
it, period.
bikers? Cause I went
Yeah,
on
it's
one
in
trail
Google
one
Maps
day,
too.
it was like-
Yeah, if you just
What
do
was that?
Google Maps,
I went on one trail
Google
one day,
Maps?
forget it, it was.
yeah, the 6 Mile Run
bikers
State
galore.
Park,
That's the problem, yeah,
And
there's a lot
me,
of
you
bikes.
have
oh, there's a trail map link
You
there.
ride a horse?
In
What?
the search
You
you've
ride a
got.
horse?
No,
See
just
Tara in
walking
the
on
drop
2
down?
feet.
look in your drop down, you have 6 Mile Run trail map,
Speeding by me.
Oh wait, hold on. I'm sorry. I'm
go to your left,
going to my left.
see in your drop down?
Oh yes.
You
I
just go to the
saw
trail
it.
map.
6 Mile trail map. All right.
But it's got scale.
I don't know.
Cause it would be
Without
nice to do
scale.
something there. I mean, it is a
It's
big
nice,
park.
but without, is there a scale? Yeah,
There you
there's
go.
a scale at
Yeah,
the
there
bottom.
is
on the
Where's
left.
Yeah, so we're talking about, on the left.
Right,
Trail.
Correct.
so it's, you don't, until you get to that green section, I think the green section kinda indicates some woods, right? Or is that changing
So-
park
You want me to-
designation?
So the blue
Yeah,
Sky Trail-
forest versus field, yeah, so it's
So
correct.
here's Blackwell's Mills. Here's Canal. So this is the
On
parking
the
area
left.
over here
Yeah.
that we're talking about.
On the
All
right.
right.
Yeah, so we're talking about
Got
starting
it.
here and
Yeah,
going
it's a
through,
long section
and just
of-
kind of figuring out how far you wanna go,
Okay.
because like where the blue and the red meet at that bridge, I think that,
Oh, no,
at
you'd
one point
never
it
go
was
that
4
far.
miles.
Okay.
You'd never go that far, I don't think.
Yeah, yeah.
I was only
Okay.
thinking that you might take people up as far as the first set of woods and turn around.
You do get in the woods pretty
Yeah.
quickly there.
What's the scale?
It is.
Is that little pond there or
Half a
something?
mile,
Yeah.
Kids like water and stuff.
half a mile, so it's like a half a mile till you get to the first forest,
Yeah.
roughly,
Yeah,
maybe a
you're
little
about
less,
there, yeah.
maybe a little less, but half a mile to the first forest, a mile,
There's a water crossing like right here. Like that could be, that might be a nice turnaround point,
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
getting near.
that's
Um,
probably, 2 miles to that, look, with all the zigzagging going on there, you're
Yeah.
probably looking at 2 miles up to where it touches Van Cleef, or excuse me, Blackwell's Mill.
Well, you can figure the time, say, okay, we're gonna go out for 45 minutes, out and 45 minutes back, whatever, I don't know.
That's probably a
30
better
minutes.
way to do it.
Right, yeah.
See where you wind up with, cause you don't know who you're
Yeah.
gonna get that day, slowpokes or fast walkers. Well, slowpokes are perfectly nice to have slowpokes. too.
Yeah,
You just don't know, you're gonna cater to your slowest group probably.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And if you
And
get
the kids will be running ahead,
Yeah.
saying, what are you taking so long for?
True.
right, yeah.
true,
That's what they do.
until they get bored.
that, the kids are not gonna, I don't think be our problem, that'll be the parental problem.
Right.
So you wanna do 10 until noon, is that too long, or?
I think that's about what we've run our past events for.
Okay.
This might be quick, so, yeah.
10 a.m. till noon, so we can advertise that, get it on the website, so it's part of the day's events. And then we can think more about the details as we go. Last year, when I thought we were having it, it got rained out. I ordered those, like, they're little hiking, like, stickers, and I got a bunch of them in my office.
Yes. We were
So
gonna
can-
do a scavenger hunt to keep
Yeah,
everyone engaged.
yep. But we can think of other things, like, now we have time, if you think of any group that you want us to partner with and see if we can get them to come out and have like when Duke Farms does their Firefly Walk, I'm thinking, for example, along the walk, they'll have like someone sitting at a table talking about different things. I don't know if we can go that far and find other groups, but maybe.
Tara, one other point, we normally have to get a permit from DNR Canal Park to use it for
Okay.
the tour.
That's
I don't
good to
know if
know.
we'll be required to do that as the township entity.
I'll check.
I just don't know, you might want to touch base, do you know Patricia Calliser?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I'll reach out to them and find out. That was a good point, cause that would not be good.
Yeah.
Okay, a permit, yes, I'll check on that.
Hopefully we don't need to pay for a permit, we can just do a little.
Yeah,
And see if anyone else is gonna use it, because some of those biking groups gather there and.
yeah, look
Yeah.
for other, yeah, okay. Check for other, okay.
Do we wanna have a backup plan? Should like the Van Wickle house be like our backup?
I think
Like
that's
to
a
do the
good
towpath
backup.
at Van Wickle house?
Yeah,
Because it'll be easier for us to get parking there, I would think,
Is it a backup for what purpose?
if we can't get the permit to use the.
Well, I guess, it's the whole thing's part of DNR Canal Path, so you'd have to get a permit at Van Wickle too.
Right.
Well, Van Wickle's
Well,
Franklin
The
Township.
Van Wickle's ours.
Why do you need a permit to set up a table?
We own Van Wickle.
Well, we need a permit to use that parking lot and set up the table.
I guess to set up a table.
Oh, we own that parking lot.
I don't know, do we, or does DNR
I think
Canal
we- I
Park
think we do, 'cause I was-
own it and then allow us use for
You're talking about Van
I don't know what the
Van Wickle,
relationship
yeah,
is.
because I mean, where we put in kayaks right to the bridge there, I was just looking into it and
it is.
I thought it was
yeah.
DNR Canal, but John Moose is saying, no, that's
Well, if
township.
we own the access even, it might be worth looking just to make sure, because we would be using their property to host an event if it's on the towpath.
Mhm.
So it might be at least worth asking. I don't think.
And let's make sure they know our
Yeah.
average turnout is like 5 to 10 people.
Yeah.
You know, it's not
Yeah.
like,
It's not mobs.
we're not, yeah.
All right, so the first, I will look into that, and the first choice is,
Blackwell's been.
Black Mills Wells, and the second choice is the Van Wickle House. Okay. Excellent. All right, so by the
Should we
next
do a rain
meeting,
date? Should we set up a rain date just in case?
if you want to do next weekend, or that would be June 8th?
Just a thought to prepare.
June 8th, yeah. Or you can do the next day, but if it rained the day before, it's probably muddy.
Oh, it's a
so-
Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
You wanna try for the next weekend, 8th? Rain date, 8th?
Sure.
Okay.
I would say yes.
Rain date. Okay, alright, so we'll start working on this and just getting everything organized and, keep you posted.
And it'd be also on the things to do in our township website too.
Yeah, we'll get it all on there, we'll get everything.
And, and then those like lawn signs,
Oh,
I know those
yes,
didn't go out till late last time, I think.
Mm.
We kinda forgot about those.
the lawn signs
For
for,
National Trails Day, we had the normally go like, at the trailheads.
oh.
And it has like the township logo on it, and then like, I think the date gets like pasted on, like the new date.
Oh, okay, alright. Okay, let me follow up with that. I don't find them, but I will, okay. So lawn signs.
Did we settle on a time that, was it 10 o'clock, or I know?
Yeah, 10 till
10.
noon. Okay, and I can get stuff in the kiosks and stuff, we can make a flyer, get in the kiosks,
That would be great.
okay. Sounds good.
You started by talking about like signage stuff?
Yeah, so,
forgot we have off
last
that.
year, I think I might be getting events confused, maybe it was the 4th of July, but at some
The road
point.
banner?
No, you had said like some kind of standing table,
The one, the
trifold,
accordion one, the one that kind of,
maybe it was that. I thought you said it
And-
was like it stands on a table, it's like
Well,
a,
one thing, Jim wanted the stand that we could get something and roll up, so
Okay.
that there'd be on a stand. The cheap
Just let me
way
make sure of it.
is the trifold. The trifold.
right,
That has like a notepad on one side and blank on the other, and you can, tape things onto it or whatever.
Okay.
And it's, you can put it on top of a table, and it gives some height and structure.
yeah, so my thought was that for National Trails Day, if we could get like some kind of graphic together to get a quote on this sign, we can probably do it, I'm sure that's in the printing bit, I have to look and see for the accordion one. But I just need to know what should be on there, cause we don't want something that's dated, because you wanna be able to use it, frequently. And I know it's a lot to think about right now, but maybe by the next meeting, if you guys could like come up with some idea, maybe even if it's just like the map, you just want the map with all the trails on it,
Well, that was at
like
Canal
that,
Fest.
yes.
And more or less, it's just like an old screen, like a movie
Yeah.
screen
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
But maybe we want all the trails on there, like the map of all the trails, maybe that's the best thing,
that's what we
although that
talked
is gonna
about,
get
wanting
dated.
that, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna
Like
get
just
dated
trails
at some point.
advisory.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
And then we can use
Franklin
that like
Township Trails.
4th of July,
yeah,
Canal Fest,
Mhm.
Franklin Day, those things.
with like our website and stuff like that. I can at least find out then what the cost would be. Okay, alright, that's good.
I think that would get a lot of use.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Cost for accordion. The only thing with that one is you need a tall person to remember that, because we had one at the county and I went to go put, like, there's a pole and like you hook it to there, and I had to like get on a chair to hook it on there. I was like, where is all the tall, cause they're pretty tall, but. Alright, cost for accordion trail sign, okay, I'll try and find out how much that would be. Cause now that we have the printing bit in place, we can go ahead and, order signage if we want. Okay.
And whoever did the design for the map itself, or the design website, should probably be able to help with that, I would
Oh,
think.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, what we wanted on it, so,
Yeah, the map is a great idea.
okay,
It's all there.
awesome. Okay, sounds good.
Okay?
Is there like a national or a New Jersey national trail site that we could also advertise on something like that?
A New Jersey one?
A New Jersey
um,
national trails or a national trails?
There is, that's where I advertise
That's
this
your
event,
advertise-
that's where I
okay.
register it. I don't know if there's like a specific,
I'm just wondering, get the word out.
yeah, so what I did last year is you can do it for free. You go onto the American Hiking Society and you put your,
Okay.
and of course it's gonna take forever right now, but you put your information, and then if people on National Trails Day are looking for an event, there's a way to search, like events near me, and so at least they'll pop up there.
Oh, that's
So
great.
say I've hosted an event, that's
Host an
where we add
event.
it, but you can also find an event. So if people were looking, they could come here, hit find an event, and then, yeah, you can enter in, your zip code or whatever, and,
State.
Great. It's good.
yeah. But I don't know if there's a, I don't know if there's like a New Jersey chapter, there may be.
Oh,
Okay, check. Can you put the zip code in and see what,
Yeah.
see what pops up?
I don't know if you bother with the zip code, just put in New Jersey and see if they
She
let you
did.
put in New Jersey.
No, that's Manville. What's the,
Maybe leave the zip code, maybe leave the
7-3.
zip code off and just see what comes up for New Jersey,
Leave the zip
Yeah,
code
sure,
off?
too.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's probably a bunch, I'm sure, yeah.
and maybe change the radius to not 25 miles, but something.
Let's see. Okay. So here's some.
There we
So Monmouth County is having theirs at 9 a.m. Trail Maintenance Stewardship Project. So they're doing a project. They're doing
That's a
some
different
kind
one,
of.
Davidson Mill Pond,
Yeah.
where is that?
That's Newman Springs Road in Lynn Croft.
That's the one above it.
It's
Oh,
The
this
other
one,
one's South Brunswick.
South Brunswick,
So we're competing with a lot of local
Yeah.
events.
Yeah,
Tuckerton.
look at this competition.
Berkeley Township, Cherry Hill, Blairstown, North Brunswick, here's North Brunswick.
That's the day
Other
it's in
trail dedication, trail maintenance, let's see, a few more details. So they require an RSVP, so this is all the stuff, are we gonna require an RSVP or no? No, okay, so what they're doing, join us for habitat restoration projects and trail work, so that's, they're doing some,
They're all
Project
meeting
stuff.
at 9.
yeah,
Yeah, I noticed that too.
so they're gonna be
It's
removing
June,
woody
they're trying to get out
material.
early.
So they're removing woody
point being?
material. But yeah, so there's a lot of
They're
events,
all
I mean.
meeting at 9.
Right, meet at 9, I'll see you at 10.
I know, right?
We can go to those at 9 and, you know,
Start at
flip
9.
over to
That's
ours
fine.
at 10.
Oh, there's one
Start-
at 10.
Start at 9.
Nine, oh yeah, look at all these are nines.
We have
See,
to,
But the
we
one
have to
down
compete.
Island
Oh,
Beach,
8:30.
Oh, look, those
Oh,
jokers
look at
trying to
that.
push.
Another 8:30.
8:30.
These
trying to
two-
corner the market,
Yeah.
first on.
Parking is
First off.
probably better earlier.
Yeah.
Get it out
We'll
of
do
the way.
9. If we're gonna have to compete with the other locals,
What's
do
this
9.
one? Oh, here's Metuchen.
Catch up.
Bike ride, hike, special exhibit. Can you bike ride at the trails there too? Can we have one person walking and one person biking, or is that too much? Oh, here's the Mayor's Wellness Walk at Franklin Lakes. That's up north though.
We did that, yeah.
Oh, thank
Oh,
God.
they're at 10 a.m., okay.
So I was gonna say, with all these posted, we're kinda like behind the 8 ball. Should we
Yeah,
start
okay.
thinking sooner
Yeah.
Yeah.
so that we
I
Well,
post
this is
this?
only 17 only so
Kids'
far
activities.
posted, so by the time National Trails Day gets closer, there'll be like 100 pages full of this, so
Well,
yeah.
They're not competition. I mean, it's not like,
Okay, yeah, that's true.
they're gonna must, Metuchen or Franklin. Franklin people are gonna look to
Yeah.
see if there's one here, hopefully.
So
True,
we're
'cause
moving
they'll
it
put
to
in their
9?
zip code and then they'll find us.
No, still 10, right? We still
Yeah,
want to
go
do 10?
for it. Doesn't matter to me. This is one
Yeah.
place.
He'll be there at 10.
Parking will be easier at 9.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Even
All right.
at 9, it can get dicey.
Alright, so you wanna do 9 to
No,
11?
Yeah.
9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Okay.
Call you and ask how it is.
We'll catch up on
So we're
your
gonna do
thing.
a guided walk, and Chuck, you said you can do some type of biology, like when I
Yeah, I can
advertise
do-
it, I can say things like, you know, like science walk, kids' activities, it's very broad, I can, that's okay?
I
Do
mean,
you
I-
really
I-
have kids' activities?
We can make a kid's activity.
Mark, you can meet us at Van Cleef, we'll probably be there at 10.
Or are you, I guess I wouldn't put out something that says we have a kids' activity unless we actually have something, or we're really seriously gonna have a kids' activity. We
I'm
don't want
sure
to
we
false
can.
advertise.
Yeah, I'm sure we can think of something for the kids, right?
Well, do all kids have iPhones? Vanessa?
Right?
Fortunately.
Well, we'll leave it off for now, and if we think of
I'm-
something, we can add.
Yeah, I'm trying to recruit people to do certain types of citizen science projects. And a lot of these are turning out to just be using your iPhone. And one of the major ones is iNaturalist, which, you can take your phone, you can photograph, all phyla, plants, animals, whatever. It uses machine learning to identify the species from the photograph. And you put your photograph in the database after you identify it. It's curated, so if somebody agrees with you, then it becomes a research-grade observation, and it's used by naturalists all over the world. It's you know, it's something that I'm sort of passionate about, actually. I wanna get people involved in this stuff. I can do a walk, you know, teach you how to do iNaturalist, if you like, or
Yeah,
or
that would
just
be
go out
good.
and identify
Learn how to
trees,
use
or
iNaturalist.
there'll be lots of
Yeah.
dragonflies and damselflies on the canal this time of year. We
That
can
would be
identify
really
those.
good.
It's,
iNaturalist,
Maybe
okay.
you should say something like merge your cell phone with nature. Or
Yeah, I
something
like
that,
it.
'cause
Oh,
they
that's
won't-
nice, yeah.
You got a knack
They
for the
won't know
marketing
what
slogan,
iNaturalist
Phil.
is.
So you got a knack for the marketing slogan.
Alright, they do have a New
Merge
Jersey
yourself.
chapter, Anne Marie, just so
Oh,
you
do
know.
they?
Yeah, but National Trails Day is its own like, separate page, but they do have a chapter if you're interested.
Cause
So
that
Chuck,
would be using technology to do it.
Mhm.
I didn't see anything like that in those other towns offering
Yeah.
something
Right.
like that. Ha, that's
Yeah.
our
All right,
advantage.
Chuck,
I like
if
it.
they took a picture picture, so like that day, they'd be able to, you know, say, I don't know what this is, but I take a
I can
picture.
take a picture of you right now and you'll come back and say human.
Maybe. Maybe we'll get you the DNA test.
Right.
My daughter's dog is in the database.
That's the judgment.
But if they took a picture of a tree, then it would identify what that tree, what the
Yeah,
picture is.
if the picture's good enough resolution, it'll do that, and they're great for plants and, you know, stationary objects in particular, you know, birds are a little tough. You know. I use different cameras for that, but, yeah, it's a useful learning tool.
Sounds great.
It does sound fun.
All right.
All right, anything else? We move on to old business? All right, let's move on to old business. All right, pathways and trails plan. If you can, Tara, if you can go over, because Vanessa and Mark weren't here, I know they
Oh,
add a
right.
lot
Yes.
to what, so if we can go over what we talked about last, and if they wanna change something or add something or
Yeah.
something like that.
So the last time we met, we went over, so remember a while back, we did that exercise where I brought the map in and we circled where potential trail connections would be. So I brought that same map back and we had everyone kind of look at it again and see, you know, with fresh eyes, you know, hey, is there more connections to be made or are there more places for trails? And I think it kind of stayed the same. It wasn't, like, there wasn't a whole lot of changes made, but that's what we did at the last meeting. We tried to identify the assets and the obstacles. That's kind of the chapter we've been on for a while. I think that's basically what we did last time. We didn't really get into a whole lot of nitty gritty of it. We looked at the map and we were saying, you know, here's our assets, here's our obstacles. What I'm gonna do is when I'm writing the document, I put in, you know, a little snippet of each trail that we have in Franklin, and write about it, attach the trail map and the link where it's possible, and that's the assets. And the obstacles we talked about haven't changed much either. It's always, you know, funding and accessibility for people of all, you know, with people with disabilities and people with transportation issues, getting grant funding. So we kind of just reiterated that. I think the best thing to do with that chapter is for me to kind of finalize the draft of it and then give it to you guys and let you read it and digest it, because that's like the biggest chapter, I think, of the entire document.
Was that assets and obstacles, or?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think, you know, not even biggest in terms of length, but just it's like the meat of it.
Yes.
So I can do that. What I did start working on this time was, I thought maybe we could talk about, trail design in terms of materials and slope and, you know, creating new trails and all that. So if you wanna talk about that, we can talk about that a little bit.
I love that.
Actually, I think I got this information from John Lewis, that was, guidelines for trail clearing and marking. And this was all part of the Adopt a Trail program that they instituted, and apparently just sort of
Yeah,
fell apart.
okay,
I actually think we ought to try to
yeah, I agree.
reinstate to help
Yeah,
people maintain our trails, but
okay,
there are, let's see, I've got a couple of, I don't know how many copies I have. I have a few copies of those.
yeah, pass it around, and then, so while you're passing that around, I would like to go through with you what I learned from the original plan, and then I put together some research on trail design and construction that we can go over, and a lot of it has not really changed since the first plan, but there are some updates in terms of using like sustainable design and some different materials to use, but yes, that, and I'll take a copy of that when you're done, if you don't mind.
Okay, sure. I think we may have had these at when we have the Franklin Day or whatever. This might be
seen
one-
this
before.
Yeah, I've seen this before. This might be one of those handouts that we have on the
Probably.
table, so.
Yeah, okay,
I don't know how, if we still have copies
I
or
don't know
anything
if we have
like
any
that.
more, I have the to-go box.
okay,
Right.
no, this is
Check
good,
it over, Jim.
I will definitely look
One
into
of
this.
these days.
Okay. So
Your garage
our
is clean now.
existing pathways and trails plan has as part of, it's appendix 6, is the types of trails. And so it goes into, it talks about basically what are the types of trails we have in the township, existing bike and walking trails, then we have existing and proposed bike lanes, existing and proposed hiking trails, and then bike routes. So we can keep those definitions in there, that's kind of background, talk about, you know, what are the types of trails that are available to use. Then Appendix 7 is about trail design, construction, and management. So there's a section on trail scouting, which is if you're looking to start a new trail, what are some of the things you should do? And so it starts off with, you're gonna verify where your control point, so where is it gonna begin, where's it gonna end? Finding the best alignment, identifying the natural features, and validating that the route's reasonable. I don't think any of that needs to change, that's still standard. If you look at the National Park Service, it's still standard how you do a trail. It also recommends that there should be there should be two people. The person in front should be the eyes, basically looking around for obstacles and trying to figure out what the best alignment is, and then the second person should be like taking actually the notes and the data, and again, standard, I think that's important. Also, you wanna look at the presence or absence of gaps or passes, stream crossings, rock outcrops, known areas to avoid, and known features to include. So again, standard. Trail development and expenses. So there's a list here, and I think we can expand upon it a little more. But it basically says, here's a list of things that you need to look at when you're developing a trail, and it's permits, trail, having someone actually design the trail if you're gonna pay a professional to do that, signs and markers, surface materials, construction tools, again, all these things. The other thing that you have to keep in mind is that if we're gonna be crossing a stream of any type, you gotta include the permit from DEP as a cost. So all of what I'm reading to you is from our pathway and trails plan as it is now. I don't think that needs to change, because the process and procedure has not changed whatsoever. We go into the types of trails. You have a loop trail, a line trail, a horseshoe. You have multi-use path trails. This is an area where I think we can incorporate some of what the county is doing, because they're specifically looking at multi-use trails. So you'll probably take some of the research they've done in terms of, what is really the best way to incorporate walking and biking on a road, and exactly how many feet really should it be buffered from the road. And in Jersey City right now, they have a big, one of the big design elements they do is they make sure they put an actual physical buffer between the lane and the road, and a lot of times it's like just a retaining wall, but they'll have art on it, or it'll be, something like that. So it's an interesting thing, but it's really a safety device. The surface. Yeah.
Not too much short. I just would go back and just ask the overall, why should we include an Appendix 7 trail design, construction, and management in our pathway and trails plan? Since this sounds like generalities coming from like the National Park Service,
it is
where it's drawn from. So why do we need to do? Why would we include it in our own like if you make a document too long? I know it's in the original document, so I'm not saying why do you add it, but I'm like asking the group as a whole. Why should we bulk up the document and make it into a cumbersome, less likely to be read document with appendices that are broad and general, and there are a lot of recommendations, but they're not. Are we supposed to do this for our trail? Do we have to do it? I mean, they talk about, like on the next page, something on the surface stuff about doing a penetrometer and stuff. Why? Why would we do that? Or
Well, and that is a policy question for you guys, and that is a good one for sure. It depends. Do you want to have the plan? A lot of planning documents will have background and explain what's the process, what's the procedure. It's not required that that's in there. So if you want to have an appendix that says recommendations for trail construction in Franklin Township, this is the materials we recommend using. This is the height that we're gonna, standards for height and width and climbing, turns, and all that. If you want to just leave it at that, that's fine. Or if you don't want it at all, that's fine too. It's really like up to you guys how you want the plan to be written.
Would we expect that some entity in town, private or other, doing development and getting involved in making a trail would grab the bit in their teeth, run with it, and not come to this group or open space for us to tell them how the trail should be beforehand, and that they would need a document like this to refer to in our absence?
I think having a document like this that explains, say a land development application came in and one of the requirements or recommendations was, hey, you need to put a trail in. I think being able to hand them something that says, maybe not in all of this wording, but maybe, hey,
we don't specify it, right? We tell them there's,
Right,
you could, we have a list here, the list is 12 bullets long,
Mhm.
10 bullets long.
Yeah.
It could be asphalt, concrete, boardwalk, stone
Right.
cylinders, soil with stabilizer, packed soil without, sand, pea gravel. I mean,
it goes on.
I don't think we
yeah.
want a sand trail here in town.
No.
Maybe I'm missing something, like,
Well, no,
why
and
would we
that's,
go,
yeah,
why do we need to lay that in to a big
Right.
document? And why, what would they do with that if we said, well, you could pick any one of these 10? Are these all on our approved list? Have we,
well, that's the thing, do you want an
do we
approved
need
list?
an approved list?
Well,
Are we supposed to do that?
the other
Do we
thing
wanna
that
do
you
that?
might be doing is talking to this group 10 or 15 years from now. You know, like, we sent people to the moon, and then when we started to try to go back, since we haven't done it in a long time, people had forgotten exactly how you do this and that. So, having this document for future trails committees, I don't think is a bad thing. I haven't read through it, I don't know.
Right.
Maybe you're pointing out that the content isn't.
That's
the
all,
best.
is like, if this is standard recommendations of
Mhm.
all the different possibilities that exist that come from someplace like a National Park Service, can't we just reference out and say, go look at the current state of the art of trail surfaces at
Mhm.
blah, at a reference point, and then
You could.
we don't have to add, I think appendix 7 is quite long, folks.
Yes, well, yeah, so.
It's like 6 or 7 pages
Yeah.
worth of stuff that,
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know why anybody would read it, any member of the public's gonna
Yeah.
skip it or fall asleep.
Well, what we could do is, and so this is background, this is basically saying, here's the background, here's like what the research says, you don't have to put the research in the plan. Maybe it might be a good idea though to say, you know what, in Franklin Township, when we do a new trail, this is what these are our standards, and this is what we want it to be. So we want the clearing to be it's gotta be minimum 8 feet high, and width, it has to be minimum 4.5, 5 feet wide, and we prefer this material. If you can't use this material, then you use this I don't know, maybe
But-
that's too much and you don't wanna go there.
Yeah, I think
But
we're
there's such a
specifying.
variety of trails. I don't want a
There is.
4-foot wide trail in the middle of the woods.
Right, I mean, we want a 4-foot wide
So-
trail at Butler,
No,
right? I
Right.
but
mean,
if there's
we have grass trails now on the
Yeah.
edges of farm fields and like, for example, Bunker Hill has a lovely grass trail, but I don't see grass listed
Right.
here.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind too, and this is just so, when the original Pathways and Trails Plan was written, there was some changing going on with the Americans with Disabilities Act, in reference specifically to trails. So that has since, come to light and been updated and all that. The ADA guidelines apply to walking trails only, and only new walking trails. So old ones don't have to be retrofitted or anything. However, if a substantial change is made to a walking trail, or a new one is, you have to comply. And it connects to a trailhead or another accessible trail. So if it's in the middle of like interior Bunker Hill, it doesn't have to comply with ADA standards. However, if it's gonna connect to the trailhead and it's a new trail, you have to comply to ADA standards, which means those widths and the material would then come into play.
Have to, why? What law tells us we have to have a trail that complies with ADA?
Well, the American with Disabilities
So
Act.
like any trail we do in Franklin Township that we use public money for has to be ADA compliant?
If it's new,
If it's new or
and
some-
if it connects with a trailhead or, an accessible trail, so say there's another ADA compliant trail, when you create a new trail off of that ADA compliant trail, it also has to be ADA compliant, or if it's new and it connects to the trailhead, so it's areas where like people can drive up to and get to.
That's all of,
That's
It's,
kind of-
well, no, but if you're doing it like the trail that you've been working on for a while, that, I don't think that would have to be ADA compliant, cause we're talking about it's interior, it's it's not connected to, and then there's of course, there is a way to say, hey, the topography does not allow for this to be
Right,
ADA compliant.
that's-
So you can get a waiver, it's not like you must or nothing.
right, but I think the things that we should point out then is, like something in here that says, note that there's now ADA guidelines that would compel us to do this for
Right.
certain trails.
Right,
Run this by a lawyer or whoever it is in
Yeah.
the township to make sure we're not required to do that. But I wouldn't necessarily wanna have to
Right.
spell out in here
right.
all the nuts and
Mhm.
bolts of what an ADA compliant trail is. We could figure that out at the time.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's where I need guidance from you guys. So for me writing this, and you gotta keep in mind, in my background, I'm a planner. So if you tell me write like a textbook, I'm here for it.
Yeah, no, this is
You
not, this
know,
is
but
not a
if you don't want
criticism.
that.
This is not shoot down Tara's
Or-
idea.
no,
I'm
I
just-
agree,
I'm-
yeah.
The point of us doing the exercise of revisiting our pathway and trails
Right.
plan is to ask questions that,
Absolutely.
like, now we've seen this in here. We've had this plan for 10 years.
Right.
I've never heard of a planner going to it and asking to see what's in this appendix.
Right.
I haven't seen any, nobody's ever come to this committee. The committee's never gone and
Yeah.
referenced this appendix.
Yeah.
And it just hasn't proven to be useful for 10
Right,
years.
so that's why I need
Why
you
have it in
guys-
here?
yeah.
Why spend our time tonight
Right.
revisiting
Absolutely.
what
And I
we think
agree
should
with
be
you.
in it?
Yeah.
Maybe we wanna just toss it out or just
Yeah.
include it really short with a few references to external sources.
Yeah,
and be
Yeah,
that
done.
makes sense to me.
That's the
Yeah,
guidance
so-
that I need from you in terms of writing it. Do you want to have it just reflect the old plan and go that same way? I'm updating it. Is there things you want out, more things you want in? So yeah, you tell me what you think would be best.
I'm one voice, I don't know.
Yeah.
the
Like,
rest
so what I
of
hear
the
what
makes
you're
sense.
saying is like
Too
current
much.
best practices,
Or do we-
sourcing the most
Or
recent
do we
sources that we're
keep
gonna be in agreement
The
with.
document as is, but just have a summary, and we have it there as backup if need be. I mean,
No,
Yeah.
it's just a lot of, there's a lot of
Right.
stuff here, I don't know. I mean, I don't like the idea of just keeping it for the sake of keeping
Yeah.
it for historical.
I'm only thinking for the one time in 100 where someone is saying something that you can't refer back to a document, say, well, if you're being a pain in the butt because of, and this is why you have to do it this way, is because it was stated in this document in the appendix on page 28, D-F2 or whatever.
But this document isn't binding anybody but us to these specifications, correct?
It's not, no, it's not binding,
Then
but
you talk about
it's-
developers and stuff, but that's not, like
Yeah.
developers aren't.
No, but again, it's not binding, but if it's adopted by the planning board as an element of the master plan, it's something that, you could give to a developer and say, hey, here's our standards that have been adopted for trail design. So when you wanna put in your concrete path and we don't want that, here you go, here's why. But maybe it
But
hasn't
we
been
don't
useful,
like, so right
yeah.
now, the way it states, we don't have a why because we've suggested
Right.
10 possible examples of trail surface, right? So
Right.
they say, well, you said concrete's here, well, sand's here also, but I think a sand trail would be
Yeah.
probably kinda stupid around here.
Well, that's one way you can go. Maybe you all wanna look at it and say, you know what, we would love if every trail in Franklin was made of the red recyclable material. We're only gonna have red recyclable material, not that that's what you're gonna do, but maybe that's your thought, right? And you put that in, that's our number one standard. Of course, we understand there's places that's not feasible. Or maybe maybe your standard is, we wanna use sustainable material only when possible. We wanna use natural material only when possible. I don't know. Or maybe, like you said, maybe it's like refer to the national, which is totally fine because they have all the diagrams and everything there, so.
Yeah, I think we could cover ourselves for the scenarios like, and you bring up a good point, Tom, if somebody's being belligerent about,
Yeah.
difficult about it, really being, pushing
Well,
back,
and
right?
that's
Where
a
does it say,
far-fetched-
where does it say, it says we have to do, if we have something here that just says Franklin
Refers back
Township
to-
Trails Committee
endorses
it
the.
says that you should have a minimum trail standard and refer to X, where minimum trail standards can be found. We expect all of our trails to meet at least this minimum standard, and then leave it there, and then we don't, I just think we should stay away from being too prescriptive. That seems like a bad idea.
Yeah.
Because we may decide that for some crazy reason I haven't thought of, a sand trail's a great idea.
Yeah, you never know, right? You
I
never
don't
know.
know, I have no idea.
Especially a
Yeah.
Somerset to Shore Trail.
Right,
Yeah.
sure, they're just gonna fill that in
Right.
with sand the whole way.
Get used to it.
It's gonna be a
Yeah.
long slog to go that,
I
oh my
hear
gosh,
ya.
walking in sand the whole darn way.
Less money.
I mean, even part of your standards, something to think about, do you wanna have a standard in place for new trails that says, we always want there to be certain, amenities, we want there to be a bench, we want there to be, maybe we're going too far down, that's what I'm saying. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so maybe that's the direction the discussion with the group should take
Yeah.
tonight, is not,
So no background, I should say, no like, what's the correct phrase? Like, we don't need to reiterate the National Park Service's standards for trails.
right, we don't
Okay.
need to regurgitate them on these pages in
Okay,
excessive detail. We
But
can
reference
just
that.
But you should
reference, sure,
you should
we,
reference.
we can pick some, I mean, I don't,
okay.
I don't know, probably no, does not everybody probably have a copy of this appendix with them tonight, so.
I can put it up on the screen,
Yeah,
yeah,
but-
this is,
But we could all go, if you could send us recommended, like if there's, what is it, National Park Service, you said provides
yeah, and that,
training?
it's all, that's what all this is, it's straight from, yeah, and it hasn't changed, it has not changed at all, so.
I mean, I'd be comfortable, in my personal opinion, be comfortable saying Franklin Township expects any new trails in our town to meet the minimum requirements as specified at National Park Service's trail guidelines, and just reference that document and be done.
This has a pretty good listing of,
Oh, is that the one that just came around there about how to make a trail?
how to clear a trail, how to mark
But
a
again, I
trail.
wouldn't know, I wouldn't necessarily think we need to even specify all of those instructions in our plan, other than to reference the document
Mhm.
and say, you can go look at.
I think we should have some local stipulations. I think we're.
Okay, what are those, what should those be?
Here's one of my peeves is, I think that any trail that we establish should have parking available at the trailhead. For example, I go out to Negri a lot, but I don't go to the parking lot. I park on Venice Lane, because I come through the wooded area out there, so I can get to the back part of it to see things.
But you can't get to that.
I gotta
from
park on the
current
road.
Negri?
I'm either parking on the road or I'm parking on a residential street.
But you can't get to that trail from the Negri parking lot?
You can,
you can.
Yeah,
But that's far.
But that is a separate trailhead, is a separate trail entrance. And, you know, we have hunting signs posted there. It's actually very useful to park there as opposed to,
Sure,
You
but
know,
there may be restrictions we're not aware of that would preclude us from suddenly creating a proper gravel parking.
well, I don't know,
lot at that space.
I don't know that the requirement has to be a proper gravel parking lot, but at least a side of the road, you know, area where you can pull off and not be parked on the main road where people
How much
streaming
shoulder
down Venice
Venice
Lane,
has?
So-
slam in the back of my car.
So there's all kinds of rules and regulations about building houses and setbacks and things like that. And then we have this thing called the zoning board that allows variances because of the hardship of the property is. So if some developer were putting in a trail and the master plan said this is what a trail should be, they would go for a variance to say, well, we can't do that here because the geography of the land. And then they could be granted that. But the idea of having a guideline, I think is a good idea, and I also like referencing National Park Service, because let them do the work to upgrade this, and ADA is gonna change.
Right.
Right, so I'm all for having an ADA compliant trail, I don't mean to sound like it, I don't want us to have to regurgitate all those rules and then
Yeah,
keep it
yeah,
up to date
understandable.
every time.
I agree with your parking requirement though, and that's actually something that the National Park Service says as well, that having, you know, the ability to have a parking area where feasible. I mean, so, you know, we can word it as what it is, you know, we don't expect you to have to get a, you know, if you need a D variance or something in order and it's cost prohibitive, okay, but where feasible, you know.
So I don't wanna derail us, I just wanna like say this. Like, I feel like, the point of this plan is to like, to keep us on track for our long-term goals. But all these things we're talking about, you know, I've completed my first 4 years in this committee, we haven't done any of this stuff. Like, it hasn't even come up.
Not the appendix stuff, the things that we're
But I mean, like, building
continuing to table.
I mean, like that's not something, like, we haven't, like, when have we
But-
acquired more land
But we,
that we're putting, you know, we've had the opportunity to put the trails on, connecting the trails. I was really surprised when we had the combined open space and trails committee, that there is money. Like, once again, I completed 4 years in this committee, I had no idea you could ask for money from open space. We're a subcommittee of open space.
Right.
I'm thinking to myself, I don't begrudge anybody getting money for their things, but we're not asking for trail markers, we're not doing what this plan says, because I'm operating off a $0 budget. We haven't gotten a sign for our trails event that we've been talking about for a few years. So I guess, like, while yes, these specifications are important, at some point we need to go back to, like, what are we actually doing? Because like Mark has brought up time and time again, we spent a lot of time talking about National Trails Day and tabling at our events to promote use, and not about what this plan actually says.
Right.
So talking about the details is a little bit frustrating in that we don't get to execute these details.
Right.
So, not to derail it, just wanted to say it out loud.
But we acquire land all the time, and maybe we should be putting trails on. I mean, we do have 60 miles of trails, so one could argue we don't need any more trails. We're acquiring the land to preserve habitat and to prevent houses from being built. But maybe we buy an interesting piece of land, or maybe this group should be reviewing the land that we are purchasing and say, hey, that's right, and some of it is right near other land we own, and maybe we do wanna do a trail there.
When this committee started in 2006, and I was on the committee when it started, that was exactly what we were doing. And I don't know where we lost that.
Well,
I have
this
some
is-
suggestions, but I don't need to go there.
I think
Well,
we
let's
just
just put off
started
to a
a revolution.
subcommittee.
I mean, and
Hang on, you were
And
actually
you,
meeting.
and you
Always-
can request. money.
Always,
It's reasonable to request money from
Right.
open space.
but always, those things were brought to the table here. New open space acquisitions were brought to us. We weren't telling them whether they could acquire it or not, but all open space that's acquired has a public access requirement, right? That's what we were told from the beginning in 2006. It's not a question of whether we should put a trail there, it's what's the means of public access for that open space, because it's being spent, public dollars being spent to acquire it, and it's not just to hang out and be somebody's better backyard, right? And just
Mhm.
provide somebody with
Yeah.
buffer. It's public access to that space. And yet we haven't seen in years, since most people who came on later than me, we haven't seen any of those things brought to us and said, what do you think about how we might consider
Yeah.
a trail here or not, and what should it look like? Never seen it.
And even improvements to our existing trails, right? We don't talk about improving those, we don't talk about linking them more. We just complain, oh, we can't cross here, the water, we can't cross here. And we just talk about it like there's no way to possibly work around it. Any work that's done, we're physically doing ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, every now and then, we do our trail reports, and Public Works will go and like do some of the heavy lifting pieces. But it's certainly not in any way in a plan to
Right.
improve. And like I said,
yeah,
it wasn't
I
on my
understand.
radar that
Yeah.
there was a possibility.
Well,
I
let
mean,
me
I
just
think
back
Negri
up
could be a
for
great
one-
ADA trail, but we've never talked about, let's actually go make it an ADA trail.
Yeah.
Um,
Let me
but it
just back
could
up
be.
And
for
that
1
came up at the 4th of
second.
July.
So,
So when we started doing the review of this plan, which was last year,
mhm.
the first thing we did was go over our vision and goals, right? So I think that is kind of what you guys were talking about what the plan is gonna be. So we had all these goals established. This is like a draft for the chat, for, I mean, obviously before it goes into the plan, we would talk about it again, but we had identified these goals with sub-goals. So the first one was proactively seek logistical opportunities for trail expansion and connection. So we have this all down. We did talk about it a long time ago, so maybe we need to go back to it. And the reason that we're on trail design now, and I agree with you, because when I was reading it, I'm like, oh, this is a lot, But we've gone through the vision and goals, we've gone through the assets and obstacles, so now, I mean,
We
we're
haven't
getting-
gone through the assets and obstacles yet, have we?
well, last meeting, we went through the assets, and obstacles are still to be discussed. But yeah, we can discuss that more, for sure, so, the other ones we had was create connections that increase tourism opportunities. Then we had leverage funding opportunities by working with state and county as well as private citizens to establish and acquire a trail network, promote and educate the benefits, and then serve as vigilant stewards.
I think we focused a lot in the last few years on 4 and 5 and dropped
Yeah.
1, 2, and 3.
So maybe we need to, so that will be the real focus of the plan instead of
funny
the
enough,
design
In
and
a
all
sort of
that.
my weird passive aggressive, very oblique way, thank you, Vanessa, for just going straight at the problem. But that was my point about the appendix,
Yeah.
was why are we wasting our time with
I
these
get it.
giant appendices, with all this detail about stuff that none of us are gonna read? We should be focused entirely on this section that says, we want a north-south trail connector, how the hell are we gonna get it?
Right,
We want a bike connector across the north part of the township that gets from Colonial Park to the Somerset, or the closer to the New Brunswick edge. We've wanted that for a long time. What are we gonna do to get it?
So
We haven't
maybe
spent any time on it.
So maybe we finish this plan, like you're saying, like we have a lot of this down, it's been taking a long time.
yeah,
And then we have to have a real conversation about how.
Right.
and about the resources and, you know, it's great to have you here from Open Space now, like, you know, that's probably gonna help substantially, with communication and knowing what's available,
Yeah.
what we can do.
Absolutely.
And we had a little bit of that, right? Didn't we went out briefly, there's one out near on 518, right? I think Jim, you went, there's a few of us that
I
went
didn't
out.
go, I
Oh, you
haven't
missed
been
that
there, but
one.
I know what you're talking
There's like
about.
a
'cause
couple of
I
us who
was-
managed to go out there and walk around. It's a new property on 518 that I
We
believe is
saw the
getting
drone
acquired.
coverage.
Oh,
That's right, we saw the drone cover, right? Somebody flew a drone out over it,
Mhm.
right? But what happened to it? Like
That's
we,
Consolata, I think you're talking
Nope.
about, right?
No, no,
Yeah,
it's
no,
further
no.
south, yeah.
I
That's-
don't remember the
Oh.
name.
I wasn't
Was
there
it
ahead of
Fulper?
them, but I'd gone on
Oh,
several
Oh, there's a
days.
P, yeah, yeah.
Area, but, you know, that
Fulper?
was the thing,
Oh.
nothing happened.
No, I thought it was like,
Climber?
no, no, no.
Flemmer. No,
further
not
south.
Flemmer.
It's a
You've
ski,
heard
like a Slavic name.
27
Like
518.
Pia-
518.
Pikowski, something,
Oh, okay, I know what
right?
you're talking about,
This is
yeah.
way down, almost to the
Mhm.
quarry,
Yes.
right? Almost to
Yes.
where
Quarry.
Canal Road and
Right.
518 meet. It's at the
Right.
top of the hill before you go down the big hill to
Right,
hit
okay.
Canal Road.
Right.
It's on your right-hand side. They did a bunch of work there, in doing the 518 resurfacing. They created a big gravel parking area there that's right next to where this edge is, where you go into the corner. But apparently, they were working with the county or somebody. We in the township were acquiring that as an open space from the farm that was there, and it was going to
Yes.
stay farmed. But they were talking about putting a trail in.
Okay.
And it was like Ted Chase and myself and Fran and there was a couple other people took a walk out there and saw it, and then somebody did a drone overfly,
Yeah, did a drone fly
right, of it.
Yeah,
And now we haven't heard anything about putting the trail in there. I guess technically, right, it should be ADA compliant.
yeah.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Is it our property or county, or is it a
I
combination?
don't know what
Isn't it-
happened to it. I don't even
That
know if
was
they
gonna be the
acquired it.
combination,
Yeah,
yes,
that's
yeah.
a combination thing.
Cause, yeah, I remember that. No, I wasn't here, but I remember that, yeah.
Right, it predated, because it was Fran who walked it, so it
Right.
predated you, Tara. I'm not expecting you to have the
Oh,
full.
I know, yeah,
drone
I
about all
don't, yeah, I
this,
don't take
but-
any of that, yeah, absolutely.
No, it's not, Fran was moving forward with it, but then it just, in
Yeah,
the transition, we haven't heard anything more. I don't even know if they acquired it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they
Huh.
finished the acquisition.
Well, if we work with the county, Somerset County, to
Right.
coordinate this trail activities between us and
Leads
their
us back to
property.
the
It-
meeting
That's just an
tomorrow.
example, though,
Yeah.
of where we
So,
are.
so let me make,
So-
The
let me
county
make
is
the suggestion
purchasing
then,
a lot
so
of
instead
land
of
down
going
there,
back and
essentially.
updating this plan as is in its current state, it sounds like what we need to do is make a final agreement on these vision and goals, which I think we're in pretty good shape. Put together, a matrix of recommendations, not a whole lengthy document, like a matrix of recommendations that are prioritized. And then have an appendix that says, you know, reference back to the, trail standards and design. So we're not gonna write about trail design, construction, we're gonna reference, so it's gonna be actually a very
Right.
short,
I guess I'd spend
And
the
to the
most
point
time,
document.
I guess I think
Yeah,
we should spend
and
the most
notes.
time on appendix 2.
too, and that's the assets
Which
and
is-
obstacles.
Well, it's called recommendations for new trails or enhancements to existing
Okay,
trails.
right.
That's appendix 2. I guess I'd rather
Yeah.
spend our time there than talking
Okay.
about,
No, that's good to know.
sand trails or
Yeah,
asphalt.
yeah,
Well, we can bring, the acquisitions and purchases that
Yeah.
have been finalized to
absolutely.
this committee and talk about.
That would be great.
Maybe go out and tour it,
Well, that's what this
and
committee
look
should
at
do
where,
now.
Yeah.
trails could go.
Yeah, I mean, I know, John, you
Now we
can't
have
talk
an
about
active
stuff that you
liaison.
guys haven't acquired yet or any
Right,
confidential
right,
talks.
stuff
We're not
that's already
expecting that.
through the
But I'm-
purchasing process.
Like, this one sounded like it was pretty much in the bag, or else I'm surprised they would even be able to talk about it with us, and yet, and then it just,
We haven't heard.
I don't know what they're
Yeah,
doing.
I don't know what happened with it.
Yeah.
Okay,
I have
alright.
another question. With Middle Bush Park, were we I don't recall us being involved with any of the trails in that area. Was that open space, or,
Oh, that's a good
or is that
question.
different because it's like a more or less a recreation
It
park?
was rec, and then Fran was involved in, she brought us on board, at our meeting, she kind of showed us a map, and she suggested, and I think she and, somebody else, I wasn't available that day, I went out on one day, we did 2 different days where we walked parts of it, and said, yeah, this looks pretty good in the woods.
I think it was
we
Nancy,
kinda-
right? Nancy.
Yeah,
Cole,
Nancy,
yeah.
and then it was kinda like an old deer trail
Okay.
and some other stuff that crisscrossed, and they said, yeah, this looks good. And so Fran went out and stuck some markers out there, and then in the end, I think Public Works or the interns, summer interns, went out and actually signed it by putting up the actual trail markers. And voila, we had a trail, but we did talk about it, I'm not
Okay.
gonna knock
Yeah.
that, we did talk about what
Okay.
trail should be there, but it's not that big
Oh,
of a
wait,
space
the
of trail,
committee
it's
was
more
involved.
yeah, we
Right,
were
that's
a small footnote that wasn't forgotten, but honestly, the trail there is a small footnote relative to the athletic fields and all the other things going on.
Correct, no, that's how I was just curious,
Yeah.
so. thank you.
Okay, so this document is not, it's gonna be abbreviated compared to what we have now, which is fine.
Yeah, some sections,
yeah,
that's just
yeah.
my suggestion,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't, but
That
it
makes
seems like
sense.
that, we don't need to spend a lot of time on appendix 6, we
Okay.
might wanna spend more time on appendix 2.
Right, okay, all right, got it. So the appendix 2 is for recommendations for new or, proposed trails, basically.
Yes.
Recommendations for new
Starts
trails or
on-
enhancements to existing trails.
Starts on page 15 and goes all the way to page 25. So basically 11 pages of recommended. And we have one, I'm looking at a little subheader, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
Yeah, I'll put it up on the
21,
screen
22,
here.
23, 24,
Yeah, I printed this out.
25, 26, 27,
Appendix 2, recommendations for
28,
new,
29,
okay.
For this document.
31, 32,
Right.
33 different subtopics of different places to recommend trails or trail improvements.
Okay,
33 different ones, that sounds like a lot of good meat to work on
Yeah.
right there.
okay,
Uh,
alright.
why don't
You
I
probably have
this-
the electronic version?
I don't have any version, I can't,
I'm sure you have the
What-
pathway
what-
trails plan, it's on the
Yeah, I
township,
It's on
reshared
the
it
town
with everybody.
website.
it's a PDF on the township
It is on the
website,
PDF.
yeah.
Oh.
You may not have sat down and digested the entire thing. The only reason I have it here in this lovely binder is because I printed this out when we passed it in 2008. So, this goes back. a
So
ways.
this is the old pathway.
No, this is the one we're
The
working on
original
right now. This is
PTP.
the original final version that was passed by this committee,
Okay,
that was
Emily,
passed
you wanna
and
share this
adopted
with-
by the Township Planning Board
It's my
and
little
was adopted by
buddy copy.
council.
Referred it now, it should be good.
Okay,
All
Alright,
right,
so-
that's what we're talking about.
Page 15.
alright, so this is, so if we go through this, I guess we can go through a few of them, or do you want, I mean, how do you wanna proceed
Well,
with
what-
this? It's getting late,
Yeah.
yeah, it's up to you, however you guys wanna,
Well, maybe we should tackle appendix 7 and discuss how we can make it brief. Is that a good suggestion? I mean, just what few things we wanna say about our minimum
Yeah.
standards for trails?
yeah, that's what, I mean, I guess that's the thing, do you all want to establish like a minimum standard, or you just wanna have like
This
some
is part of the original plan.
recommendations, or?
That's over 10 years old.
I don't want to dominate all, my suggestion would be, what I suggested before, is that we say that our trails should meet minimum standards and that we reference some external
Is that
documents.
Okay.
How to make a trail?
Okay, so we can reference the National Park Service, they have tons of information about grading, the best place to locate trails in terms of, water infiltration, prevention of erosion, so we can just reference all of those things.
Yeah, that's my opinion, there's one
Yeah.
person, sorry.
I mean, I could basically write a very small, like, paragraph and say, like, for information about grading, design, and erosion standards, or, something to the effect, we refer to these as our standards.
Well, has
We're kind of
anyone
accepting
adopted
these
a
as our-
trail yet? I mean, other than people at this table, has an entity or organization stepped up?
We don't have that program. We don't have an adopt a trail where you go out and see like one of those signs put up saying like Kiwanis adopted this trail.
Well,
We don't have that.
we don't have
No.
the mechanism? or
Right, we
really?
don't have the
Okay.
formal mechanism in place.
Apparently you did, because I have a
Yeah.
spreadsheet
Looks like it's
Yeah.
just
of
recommendations.
all the
Right.
members for the different adopted
page.
trails in the
Yeah.
township.
Yeah, but that's
Okay.
different. We don't have, like, if you've driven down the highway and you see this section of the highway is adopted by so-and-so or this trip, we don't have that mechanism.
Okay.
We have a mechanism for where people, individuals could say, we'd like to
Yeah.
adopt a trail, quote unquote, but it's an informal do
That's-
something. Yeah,
That was
Right.
what this was about. but
Well, I'm
that-
looking at that form, thinking,
Uh,
well, why would we have this form if we don't have?
I got a list of names from somewhere, but it's very much out of date because it was apparently never used.
Well, all of
Yeah.
that information is in our Pathways and Trails plan. It comes from, a lot of it comes directly from that
Yeah.
sheet and in conjunction with some other research, that was done.
I guess we could say, Tom, you were kind of like an informal person for Middle Bush Park until you became Trails Committee member, so. But you were always on the trail, so
But
you take care of it.
hypothetically, like if my pizza place, if the guy said to me, hey, I wanna help out in Middle Bush, what do I tell him? If there's not a mechanism where I can say, here, this is the form you fill out, this is the expectations, it's gonna get cleaned once every quarter, or whatever, but there's nothing to even promote at this point.
Yeah. I mean, nothing's saying we
put in
can't
that
look into the
bridge,
old
that's
program and just make a
Yeah.
Franklin Township
Well,
program that's
now,
adopt a
So then I
trail.
go back
Yeah.
to your statement, I did not know that this, and that's more on me, but I'll have to now find the old from 2008.
It's still up, it's on the town, if you go to our link, the Trails Advisory Committee link on the township website, the
It's
full
there.
PDF of this
Right.
2008 document is there.
Okay.
Now, let me show you this. So I had pulled this figure. This is from North Carolina's, National Park Service, their chapter of North Carolina. This is something we could put in. This is a one-pager. Maybe this is something you're interested in. So this is a table that says, these are their requirements for trails, right? Now, they don't have the requirements here, but it shows, what's the tread width on any stairs that we want? What's the clearing width? What's the height? What's the slope? It's a one-page table. And this is where feasible. It's not for every trail. It's like, this is our preference. So this is one option of how to show the information. Maybe it's too detailed, but this is how North Carolina, their chapter of National Park Service does it. So that's one way. You could put a bunch of diagrams in, like here's a nice little diagram from where is this from? National Park Service, I'm guessing again.
But again, now we're back to the National Park Service, so if it's listed there, do we have to even do that if it's included, as you said in your what you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, why would we put all
Why- yeah,
this
if it-
detail?
Yeah.
Why be redundant?
You don't have to. I mean, that's the thing. You don't have to. So, but if you're gonna put like a page in there that's a reference to the National Park Service, it might be nice to have like a little, at least abbreviation of what's going on, or maybe not.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I don't know. Or we just put a page that says, we adopt the National Park Service standards. Please click please see this link for more information. And that's
But I
it.
guess personally, the way I'd word it, and this is I would say Franklin Township Trails Advisory Committee expects that any new trails in the town will follow the minimum standards as for trails as recommended by the National Park Service guide, or whatever the official title of that document is, and provide a
link.
web link. But even that
Okay.
web link can go out of date, but
Yeah.
I would provide a
Okay.
link. But I would also, I would do it in bullets and say the trail should follow these things. National Park Service could be one bullet. If somebody else, like, if there's another body out there
Yeah.
that provides guidelines on that, ADA, we could have a link to the ADA there.
Yeah.
But I would
Okay.
just be, I would have like that statement and whatever 3 to 5 bullets or 2 to 4 bullets of reference links, and I'd be done with it. That's
Okay.
my personal opinion, only my personal opinion.
Excuse me, Terry, is this for a locality, is this for the state of North Carolina, or?
That was for the state of North Carolina.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
that's a document that they
But
put
now,
together.
Okay.
Who's following these guidelines?
Well, because it goes back to your point, Tom, right? If this is adopted as part of, because where this went is it got adopted as part of the township's planning master plan, right? Right, Phil, is that the correct way of saying it? Right, is that they agreed to adopt this plan and say this plan is part of their overall master plan for all of the planning and development in our town. So if a developer came to the table, like you said, and said, tell me where I have to do this, we could turn around and point and say, we said we expect
Oh,
things to meet
no,
this
I
standard, and then
understand
now
that.
reference them out.
But
That's all I got.
I guess I'm just finding things out, but it's, people at this committee don't even have all the information.
Mhm.
Sure, right, okay.
You mean for this plan, or?
In general, but look, I'm new, and a lot of this, I think, is my responsibility. Like I said, I'm not real comfortable recommending something that I've never looked at, and I'm not saying,
Yeah, you gotta
but,
look at it. I know what you're saying.
you know,
Yeah.
I mean, the national parks could say something that it's like, I would never have agreed to that, but if I don't go and at least look into it, then.
So, yeah, so maybe our homework is, we should all go out and look at whatever, maybe Tara can send us some links, and we could all go and read to whatever degree we feel necessary to be comfortable to come back to the table with an informed opinion about whether we should reference that link or not. I just don't think we should go through and make Tara reinvent
The wheel.
the whole, all this
Yeah.
detail,
Oh,
and
no.
I don't feel necessarily comfortable editing her detail work any more than I might to know these other reference
Yeah.
links.
Okay, so I think that would be good if you guys wanna look at that. Maybe real quick though, we can just, for the vision goals and statements, this is basically saying what we wanna do moving forward, and we wrote this in March of 2018. So if I just go, there's only a few of them. Proactively seeking logistical opportunities for trail expansion and connection. I'm assuming that's still in effect, you guys are still into that. So that includes, including this committee into discussions related to major traffic pattern changes. Incorporating appropriate and innovative trail design and materials when developing or rehabbing trails, so that's green infrastructure.
Sorry again, Tara,
Yeah,
question, is this something to be incorporated in the pathway and trails plan?
Yes, this is
It
the,
is?
yes, this is the vision and goals for this, what you guys are having visions and goals for moving forward with the committee.
We went over this last year.
I agree we went over it, but I thought it was a vision for what our committee should be doing, not what the pathway and trails plan should be stating.
Right.
I wouldn't, I don't feel that the pathway and trails plan should be spelling out what our committee goals are. It should be an extension of one of our committee goals,
Yeah.
right? I thought the pathway and trails plan should just specifically state, these are the parts of town where we would like to have trails, or we would like to improve the trails that are there,
Yeah.
and be done.
Well, see, and I think we had this discussion last year as well, and I guess that's why, so we had talked about these, and I guess that's the thing, so the planning document that we're crafting, is it a planning document that talks about the Pathways and Trails program as a whole, which means, you know, the committee, what the goals are for moving forward in the future? Do you have a goal for, I mean, for example, the last plan I wrote was a farmland plan. We identified goals for what our acreage would be in 10, 15, and 20 years. We identified programs we wanna implement over the next whatever amount of time. Is that what you're looking for, or are you looking for the document you're talking about, which is great, it can obviously be used, that's not, I wouldn't call that a planning element, but that's fine, it would be more of a,
Well, it's a committee plan.
yeah, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's not, a planning document would kind of encompass the entirety of the program. How is it run? What are your goals? How are you gonna achieve them?
Is there a similar parallel document to this being done by Open Space?
No,
Okay.
no. Well, let me back up. The plan that's being done for the grasslands, the management plan, is semi-similar. It's a little more focused because it's only focusing on the management and maintenance of the grasslands.
I guess that's where I'm thinking this is.
That's what you're
This is a
thinking, yes.
management
Is that
plan
what you
for our
want?
township
Okay.
trails.
And if
Not
that's
a
what you
discussion
want,
about
yeah.
what we as a committee
Mhm.
do, just like the open space isn't writing because I'm not expecting the planning board to adopt something that talks about what the Trails Advisory Committee's charter is.
No, but like, for
it's more of a
example, the
committee charter.
town's farmland preservation plan, it's something I'm working on right now. There's a chapter on how the program works, there's a chapter on the history of agriculture, there's a chapter on the present condition of agriculture and what the future of agriculture is gonna be, and how we're gonna sustain it economically. That's a very encompassing, comprehensive plan.
But does it spell out what the ag committee does as a whole in their the
It does.
committee's charter?
It does, it explains all that, but that, like I said, that's a very encompassing plan. The maintenance plan and management plan for grasslands, that is saying, this is how we're dealing with weeds, and this is, how much it's gonna cost, and this is, so those are both planning elements, they're just different. So I guess that's what we need to figure out, is, the plan that's in place right now, the Pathways and Trails plan, I think is more of an all-encompassing document. It doesn't have to say that way, obviously. So, yeah, it's really, I guess, what you're feeling in terms of how you wanna put it together and present it. And
Well,
either
just-
way is great, either way is, gets the job done.
But one of the questions is, I mean, maybe this is for the mayor, but what does a township expect? I mean, do they want something all-encompassing? Do they want something, you know, if they're gonna use this, you know, what information should we include?
Mhm.
I don't wanna throw it back there, but I mean, I'm saying, it's like,
Yeah.
if they're gonna use it for planning, then,
Well, if this was
We
last
should-
year's plan, and it was it even adopted?
Mm-mm.
no, we're still working on it.
That's
Work
what I
in
thought.
Our goal was to have it done last
So we're
year.
now in 2019 with a document that should have been done last year,
Mhm.
that has now, I don't wanna say dated, but we're finding flaws in it just tonight. Is it time, and I know this is gonna be, do we scrap the whole thing and start over?
I mean, that's an
Yeah.
option, that is an option.
It certainly is, it certainly is.
Yeah.
I don't think this is, I don't think what we have personally, having been around the block on it the first time, I don't think what's here entirely needs to be tossed out. I don't think we're at that stage of having to go back to ground zero.
You know what I think we should do?
But I think there's elements from here that don't need to be here, because I don't think we need
Right.
to talk about the committee. But I think the committee should talk about, I like the idea that Farmland's doing, like we have we can say we have 62 miles of trails in town.
Mhm.
We have a goal of reaching 100 miles of trail in town. I don't know why, we can pick a number out of the air to set ourselves this target or a goal. Or we have a goal of connecting all of our major sections of town. And then that's what the vision is that this plan speaks to by saying, we want a north-south trail, we want a crisscross trail at the widest portion. Right, that's,
Mhm.
those things then, those are the elements that then are the
Yeah.
details that speak to our vision about it. But I
Right.
don't need a vision about what Trails Committee does.
So maybe what you do then is what's happening with the grasslands plan, which is they're not like scrapping or updating the existing plan. What they're doing is they're basically coming up with, it's almost like an addendum to it, and it's like we're using our old plan as the starting point, and this now document is gonna explain how we're moving forward with this particular portion of the plan. So maybe that's more of like what we're aiming for.
Who's doing the grassland
Um,
plan?
It's really open space, I guess, is really the head of that, yeah. Oh, you mean who's writing it?
Yeah.
Or, sorry, New Jersey Audubon.
Oh, okay, yes.
So that's another.
I'd still go back to the farmland idea, I would just
Yeah.
subtract out the committee stuff.
Mhm.
We could have a vision for how many trails we want, we could say we want X% of our trails to be ADA compliant,
Mhm.
10 years or 15 years in the
Those are
future, all these
measurable.
nice vision things help us have a target to
Right.
chase, but I don't need it to tell us that we, are gonna meet regularly or something. I mean, we have a charter as a committee that was given to us by Township Council already, we don't need to restate, I don't think
Right.
that needs to be in the plan. Right.
Got it.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what you're here for, yeah, so.
Are you from Maine or something like that?
You got me, John, you got me.
Wait, and you can't get there from here.
That's right. That should be the sign at the beginning of all of our trails.
Right.
How the heck did you get here? You can't get here from here.
But I think these goals that you guys identified last time, these 5 goals, I think really are kind of like the foundation of why, that kind of explains like what the goal and the idea for moving forward is. And then off of that, we can build the recommendation. So we could have this, like lofty goals, vision statement, very specific recommendations for certain segments of trails and new trails. A description of what we already have, maybe, that's the current state, and then,
Okay, but I guess I would say I don't see goals 4 and 5 as being pathway and trails plan goals. They're not part of the vision. That's committee work.
but that's where I kind of, and again, I mean, I don't have like a, I obviously am here to serve, of course, but my thought with goal 4 and 5 is that, okay, you have all this great infrastructure, you've made this investment very similar to the grasslands. There should be something in there about maintaining it and making sure it's well taken care of. It's like a protection of your investment in the existing infrastructure. That's how I look at it. I don't know if you consider that to be, part of the actual pathways and trails work. I do, but maybe you all don't. And that's fine too, yeah, of course.
We continue to draw parallels to the farmlands, one that I haven't seen. Is there something there about maintaining the farmlands?
There is something there about sustaining the industry of agriculture.
Right, but then in terms of maintaining the farmland or not,
Mhm.
that's up to the farmer who leases the land. All we're doing
It
is
is.
providing the opportunity.
Right, it is,
So-
yeah, it is.
I don't know, the promotion of the trails, again, I feel like there's 2 pieces, right?
Mhm.
that piece is what us as a committee do, and the other piece is what we want physically. There's the physical stuff on the ground and
Right.
the more nebulous stuff about promotion
Right,
and
right.
education. I don't feel that's part of
Yeah,
the plan is we want 100 miles of trails, and these are the places we think it should be.
right.
And please reference the National Park Service, because we think it should be a minimum one of these surfaces or styles.
I guess why does it matter? Like, why does it matter if we have in there promoting and educating?
Because then what elements are we gonna have to write? This document becomes longer and longer, and the bigger a document is, the less useful it is. Keeping it tight and on focus and on the topic that we're trying to get done, I think I'm just always a hawk about those kind of things. I hate to see an unfocused, cluttered document going off on 5 tangents. That
But
drives
you're
me
talking
crazy.
about eliminating 4 and 5, which is actually the stuff that we're doing.
But that's committee work, it's not what
No,
the,
I understand.
right, it's not.
But I mean,
But
like,
it's good to publicize what we do, I mean, so people can kind
But
of
is this the document,
understand.
is this the purpose of this document, is this document's purpose?
But I don't think it's-
Again, I'm the only one,
It
let's
doesn't
have
seem-
this debate, let's argue it out now. Is
Okay.
this document's purpose
why
to
wouldn't
do
it be?
that?
Why wouldn't it be?
Because the document's purpose is for somebody who's a planner, right? My understanding of the main use of this document is
We like a lot of
the
words.
planners come in, and they come in and wanna develop something. They talk to the planning board. The planning board says, well, you can do that, but you have to include trails. And they say, well, what does that mean? Well, here's some places, you're nearby this spot, so we want a trail here, so you're gonna have to pony up and help us put a trail in here, and here's what it's about. They don't wanna hear about us going out there and
But-
educating the public on the trail.
But this is our goals. Did I miss something? Are 4 and 5 our goals, our committee goals?
Right, and they shouldn't be I'm saying they shouldn't be in the plan. The plan's not about what we do as a committee, the plan is about what we want to
Sorry, I guess that's the
to
gray
be
area.
done.
So, okay, so executive summary, right? First thing, Franklin Township Pathway and Trails Plan identifies the existing trails in the township and offers a design for an interconnected township-wide trail system connecting neighborhoods to local parks, schools, historic sites, cultural centers, shopping areas, and regional trail systems. It also provides an alternative transportation network for bicyclists and pedestrians. So you're saying, like, that's the focus of this
That
document?
first paragraph of the executive summary of the old plan is to me what this document's about.
So that's really the goal.
Well, and I think 1, 2, and 3 are all various ways of stating that goal. Right, it's a rewording of what we just put here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's not the executive summary, right? I don't, but maybe the executive summary, the goal of this document that you're looking at now is, 1, seek logical opportunities for trail expansion and connection, create connections that increase tourism opportunities. I don't even know about the leverage funding part, to be honest.
I think one thing to keep in mind is the trail, oh, I'm sorry, were you gonna?
I would keep the leverage funding.
Yeah. So the duties of the Trails Committee, we don't wanna talk about it in the document, but the Trails Committee is really the overseer, and they're charged with, overseeing the creation of new trails and the maintenance of existing trails and all that. So in order to maintain what we have and to be able to move the trails program forward, I feel like you kind of have to talk about maintenance and stewardship and promotion of the use of them. That's what I think. I don't know if you agree or not. Or the other thing is, it sounds like what you're talking about, Mark, is a very direct, it's almost like, it reminds me of like an infrastructure plan, like, here's where the pipes are.
Yeah, this is where
But
we
do you
think
wanna
the
talk
pipes
about
are.
what happens if a pipe breaks? I guess that's where we're going. Do you wanna talk about how the pipe is gonna get fixed if it breaks underground, or are we just talking about, here's what it is and here's where we need to connect to people in the future? And that's fine, both, like I said, both get the job done.
I have my opinion, I'd
Yeah.
love to hear what everybody
So-
else thinks.
I think we're gonna go back and forth on this, and I think if Tara were to get some direction from Mark Healy as to what he wants for the master plan, then for that document, we would have direction. And then if we wanna work on our goals, then that's a different document.
Right, because currently, the current plan doesn't include goals, so that's why I'm kind of pushing back on that point.
Yeah, and
We
that,
could
Doesn't
have
that,
talk
goals.
about it, doesn't
We could
talk
have-
about the committee.
We could have goals for our trails plan. Like, one of the goals of our trails plan could be to educate the public And I could see a developer saying, well, we're gonna put this trail in and it's gonna have this and this and this. Or we could push the developer in that way. But you're right, you know, the goal of what the Trails Committee would do doesn't belong in the master plan.
But duties of the committee should be in a separate document.
Yes.
Is that?
And it-
I
it
think
is,
it already
it's in
is,
your-
we have
yeah,
a
it's-
charter, we have a statement of our, that was done, I don't know if it's called a charter, but there was some declaration from Township Council that explained who we are and what we're supposed to do.
But I think this group needs more direction from the planner as to what is needed in that for the master plan.
Sounds good to me.
Great ideas discussed here, and it's interesting to me.
Yeah. All right, so I'll talk to Mark Healy. I guess in the meantime, I'm gonna resend out these goals and objectives just for you guys to kind of look over, and if you wanna add or edit or whatever, you can.
Yeah, please do that.
And I'll also send out, what was the other thing you wanted? Oh, links for, standards for trail design and construction. Then you can all look at that and we can discuss more, next time.
And if you do talk with this Mark Healy, if you could, and if there is some resolution or if there's more details that you can forward to us, cause then we
Yeah.
can think about that before our next meeting, you
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Because then if he goes, well, here's what we should have and stuff like that, then it's like, okay, now we have a little bit more focus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I do apologize, I've had the benefit of thinking about this for 13 years. A lot of you have not.
And you still haven't gotten it right.
I still haven't been able to get the committee as a whole to move in that direction.
Okay, yeah.
We're just
we
going
can do
along
that.
with the sheep, so
I don't want,
appreciate.
it should be
the,
sheep, we all have an opinion at this stage.
Well, I think we can also, as we talked about, bring forward news or about the purchase of lands that
Yeah, I think
have
that's
been
good.
finalized.
Right.
I think that's
I think,
definitely.
I think your, I don't know, protest, rallying cry, whatever it was very
Rallying
good.
cry,
I mean, I
yeah.
think that's a new direction for this committee.
Yeah.
And you're right, we do, and maybe at my direction, I'm as cheap as can be, don't like to spend money, but the only thing worse than taxing is taxing and not spending the money, because that money should be spent for the good of the people, and if this Trails Committee has good ideas for trails that help the people, then we should be spending that money.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
that's unique
Yeah, I
for
like
Phil
that.
to say that, so. We have a lot of people that are,
I don't
heard
like the
that,
tax,
Phil.
but if we're going to tax, we should be spending the money for the good of the people.
Two words that don't go together, spend.
Pretty easy.
All right, are we done with
Lot
old
of witnesses.
business?
I believe so.
Okay,
yes.
well, there's some things to do, and it was a very lively discussion, it was
No,
great.
it's good. It's
I
good to
think
have
it
that
really
discussion,
was,
yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it, Mark gives a perspective of, from history and how we should change it or how we could change it.
I'm allowed to have a lot of opinions, it's not necessarily always a good thing.
All right. Okay, reports from other committees, open space,
It's all you.
brief.
well, the only thing I noted in my notes was that, there's gonna be expanded hunting for deer in Hutchinson Memorial Forest, right? That both the town and Rutgers are interested in reducing the number of deer. That still is crazy that somebody shot 1,000 deer over in Dukes.
Well, actually, as I recall, the guy's name is Chris Aquila, and he was the wildlife manager when Dukes was established. Chris is a well-known birder in the area, a champion birder, but he's also a wildlife management guy. And actually, unfortunately, just moved to San Diego. But he was telling me that he set up the deer culling at Duke, and it was actually 2 weeks. And he contacted this world-class deer assassin, who happened to be in Mongolia at the
Why
time.
didn't you need him?
But he explained the process. He said, the guy set up feeding stations with lights in multiple places, and he said
Oh my gosh.
he ordered
All right,
special
yes.
shotguns for the
I don't
whole
wanna hear anymore.
thing, and,
Yeah, they feed him.
boom, 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 and he took out 1,000 deer in 2 weeks, not 1 week. And,
There's a lot of dead bodies all over the place.
yeah, and then they put a big fence around it, so their deer population is nice.
Fishing
Well,
around.
that's what the goal is
Nice.
for Rutgers, is to do the same thing, I think.
Yeah,
Try to
at
eliminate all
Hutchinson Forest, yeah.
within the
Yeah.
fenced area.
Yeah, I was actually in charge of Hutchinson for a while when they even started talking about, this was back in 2008, 2008, I think. And they were talking about bringing in professional hunters
Yeah.
in and to cull the deer, but problem there, I don't think Hutchinson's getting carved up with fences. Now, I don't know whether they're gonna be adequate or not, though.
Yep.
So,
All right, just an update on the pedestrian bridge at Easton Avenue and JFK Boulevard that
Oh, yeah, I saw
you
it.
heard about that.
Dead,
That's-
dead and
done.
more dead.
That's done, yeah, that's dead, so.
Was there a reason why? Or
County
did-
wasn't gonna
Oh,
support
the
it.
county, is that what
County
happened?
was-
County went and supported, it was gonna be $800,000,
Oh, did the
In a
Liberty
flood
get their
zone.
lights?
yes.
Okay.
The only other thing is this, which is happening tomorrow, are you gonna go to that at the Forstall Center?
Oh, the,
The Geophysical Fluid Lab in Plainsboro?
yeah, that, so
Geophysical
there.
lab, this sounds like fun.
it's, so all of these weather mapping
Mm-hmm.
things that, that you hear about that, run for days on a computer and things like that. All of this stuff in the United States is done in Princeton,
Oh, no,
and they were getting a tour, so,
oh, no kidding.
yeah,
Okay.
been looking forward to that.
Yeah, that should be interesting. It's looking at all the things that contribute to climate change, and that's a part of it, and then projecting out storms, and it should be very interesting.
That'd be very interesting.
Expanding the hunting in 6 Mile Run to 2,200 acres. That was the other thing that was discussed that I thought might be of interest.
So that's like, I saw the video, actually, it's like 90% or so of 6 Mile Run is gonna be open to hunting and stuff.
Correct.
Yeah, the state's opening.
Is that still
yeah.
bow and arrow?
A little portion of it's gonna be gun, a small portion, very small. But that's a state program, the state's running that program.
Right.
Is that year round, or is that just?
No, just
just-
during the prescribed hunting season, yeah,
Similar to-
September
similar to Franklin?
yeah, September to
Okay.
February,
Got it, okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it for last month.
It's not on the agenda, does anyone wanna go over their trails or anything like that? Would that help Public Works if we,
Well, I got your report, Vanessa, and I sent it to Public Works.
Mm-hmm.
And I found behind my desk, I found wedged in there, I found this bag, and like Cleo was there when I found it, and what's inside?
Trail sign.
Trail sign.
Yes, so I
Yeah.
brought them for anyone who wants to take them. Now, there's a bunch of them in there, all different colors, and like I said, they were wedged between the wall, and they must have somehow just fell right in between the wall and the desk. So for some reason, I went under the desk today, and there they were. And Cleo was there, and I was like, they're here! So anyone who wants these can have them. I don't think the nails are with them though, just so you know. So, but we can dig through.
okay.
So, yeah.
I just wanna add to what I sent you some pictures of the signs, like the posts where the trail markers are on at Bunker Hill and at Franklin Park are just, they've fallen over, they're not in the ground, cause the ground gets too moist, so they need to be repaired.
Yeah.
And I also wanna just mention like the hunting stands, I forgot to put that in my report, there's a lot of hunting stands still up, and they were never tagged with like Franklin
Right,
signs on it.
same here.
Like last year, I was able to take pictures of the tags and have people's names and address and everything, and this year they don't.
Some of them don't have them on there.
Well,
All
all
of
of them. They're in Bunker Hill near the cliffs,
Okay,
yeah.
alright.
Just-
Because all tree hunting stands were supposed to be removed by the end of February, so they need to come down.
No, we got them,
We
same,
saw
same,
4 or
same
5
thing
of
at
them.
Butler Road,
Yeah.
yellow, John,
Yeah.
and that was, we were out there a month ago, right?
Right.
And so there were like 3 stands out north on Purple Trail, but now on the Yellow Trail south, there's a stand there, and I just encountered another stand at Bunker Hill Environmental Center area. I can't give you GPS coordinates for these things. Well, you take a photo
Yeah.
nowadays, you just pull off the photo. And
Yeah.
is that the way you'd like to?
That would be
Report these things?
excellent, yeah, if you can send those to me and I can get it to DPW that way,
Yeah.
that would be super helpful.
Yeah.
Cell
I mean-
phone photo. it automatically tags it if you've got your location tracking on.
Taking photos, I'll see if they can.
Now,
Yeah,
it
that
depends
would
if
be
you have your
great.
location on, though. If you don't keep your location, like, I never keep my
Yeah,
location on my
yeah.
phone on,
No,
so I
I
don't.
don't know.
I just take away the iPhone and
Conspiracy?
location service on it.
You want the man watching YouTube?
No.
So maybe that, I just wanna mention that, and also
Cool,
maybe,
what?
maybe for future agenda, I'd like to talk about, like, as far as like, there's definitely a need for bridges, like little, little wood bridges, like the ones that they have at 6 Mile Run, something like that, at Bunker Hill, near the cliffs. And also there's like some fencing that was clearly put up for some type of a scientific research, I guess to keep deer out, but then like all these trees have fallen on it, so there's like some fencing that's just left there, maybe we can talk about that.
Okay.
And then, some
Can
last
you-
thing,
I know this may be, could you just take a picture and email them?
yeah,
To the committee?
sure.
She did of the posts, did you get that,
No,
are you
I
in the
didn't
email
get it,
chain?
no.
You know what, I only sent that to the two of you.
Oh,
Just-
okay, all
I
right,
didn't wanna bore
understood.
everybody.
Oh, well,
Okay.
then if that's the case, send it to them, and if you wouldn't mind, just
Oh, I can
send
send
it.
it to you, that's fine.
Sure.
No problem. And then, the last thing I just wanted to bring up was, I know something that came up at the joint meeting with, Open Space was, just, the access point to the towpath at Demott Lane. Cause it was mentioned that there is signage there, the only signage there is on the Van Wickle House wood slats
Mhm.
line that says towpath access.
Yeah.
And since so few people know what the towpath is,
Mhm.
Mhm.
they don't know what that means.
Okay.
And so I would like us to talk about possibly getting like the trail sign, the regular like walking sign for people who are local to see that and know that there's a trail that direction.
Is there
Okay.
is there a Franklin Township Trail, logo?
Well, on this, it just has the picture of the hiker, and it says Franklin
Well,
Township.
Is that the
Yeah.
official quote,
Yeah, basically.
It's like an international.
We
I
have
don't
the
think we
signs in front of all the
branded ourselves,
trailheads.
well, I'm
Yeah,
just
no,
saying,
it's a good question. I don't think we have
I'm
an
just
official
thinking
brand.
is that something that we would like
Maybe
to
we
look
should
at and
do.
do?
I think I
So-
like that idea.
That's
Yeah.
a really good idea. Yeah, I like it. Like coming up with a logo that's specific to Franklin
We could
Trail.
put that at every trail.
Well, the
then.
trail, some of the
Yeah.
trail
That would be
markers
great.
have that.
Certainly every
Some of the
trail
trail
has
markers have it's same as our hats, right? Where it's the walking person with
Yeah.
Franklin Township.
Yeah, I think he's saying coming up with a different type of logo, like more
But
unique.
unique to Franklin, but using that as on parking, on
I like that
the trail markers, whatever.
Yeah. I
At a
mean, this
minimum,
trail I'm
though,
talking about is a state trail, so I don't know if we would put the Franklin Township Trail to that
Well,
one.
then we have to get shirts for everybody on the committee.
But at a
Yeah.
minimum though, right, shouldn't we have the sign, because if you go down Grigstown, right,
Mhm.
at the where the driveway meets Canal Road, there is a very, it's sort of your classic brown and white sign that says
Right.
trail with the very universal
I think we
generic
have that at all
logo.
the trails. I mean, we had that at Bunker Hill, we had that at
Yeah.
Franklin Park.
That should be the one that shows
That's
up
what I'm
there.
talking about.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask, is that what you mean? by
That's what I'm
word-
talking about.
Yes, I agree with
Okay.
you, that should be the type of trail.
Mark agrees.
No, I'm just saying, I just wanted to make sure I understood that that's what you were asking for, because I didn't quite.
No, that's what I'm asking for, just that traditional
Yeah.
trail, sign.
Okay.
So people who don't know what towpath means will know that there's a trail that way.
Good idea.
And that's
And
at
it's
Van
important
Wickle.
in a sign like
Is it
that,
just
that
at Van
frequently
Wickle?
gets
To put it at-
blocked
at Van
by
Wickle, okay.
trees
Yeah.
right there.
Or
that
on
need to
Demont,
be trimmed
on
back.
Easton Ave or
Yeah.
Demont Lane or something, like right in that area.
Okay,
So that should go
trail
to DPW
signage.
To make sure we
too.
trim
Make sure
around
you
them.
can trim around
Yeah,
the
'cause they have,
signs so they can be visible.
what is it, Jersey
On both
Nights,
Demott
they
Lane
have that.
and Easton Avenue.
That's true, they do have it at the Jersey Knights Soccer Club, that.
As a
Yeah.
hiker, that there's a trail, same thing like crossing South Middlebush, right? Don't they
We
have?
have-
Yeah,
Yeah.
we now, that's
Both
where you
sides,
were
yeah.
a couple of years ago, but that's, yeah, they have that up there.
And we did
It's
that.
not there
didn't we?
anymore?
I think you were here on this committee when that got
Oh,
asked
yeah.
for, and they finally did it, but it was the county that did it when they
Oh, the
did
county
when they
did it,
did the
okay.
actual widening of
The
that
road.
road.
Bridge.
I don't know if maybe we paid for it out of open space, but
What's that?
Okay.
those
And-
trails.
And
those
you're talking
trails.
Van
The
Wickle
signs?
as well.
Okay.
I mean,
That's what I'm talking about, Van Wickle.
the,
At the roadway, the intersection of Demott and
at the
Van Wickle.
roadway, but down at the bridge, which is my understanding is township property, there was a dock
Mhm.
there on the
They got
canal.
floated
I mean,
away.
and no, it's it's tilted up on the land, there. It's just not,
Where are we talking?
it's not on the
On the
water.
canal.
It's
Van Wickle.
not
Where's
attached,
it?
By the
attached to
Van
water.
Wickle House.
we put our kayaks in there. Actually, I can put my kayak in easily with the dock or without the dock. That doesn't matter, but if it's not put back in the water, it's just a real eyesore. And it's, should be graded in that area as well, because there's all sorts of.
Is that our property or state property?
Well, I think, it's my understanding from the conversations that it's our property. So,
Yeah, it was ours.
I don't know about
Put
that.
it on our agenda to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, is there anything else?
If I could bring,
Sure.
one more thing, you talked about the unlicensed tree stands, and, we need to take care of that. I was out at Negri. I've been going out there for the last couple of months because I'm doing surveys, biological surveys and so on. I picked up a tick about a month ago. It was embedded, and it was 40-degree weather out there. I just like to bring up, when you go out, use tick precaution methods. I had the tick tested, and it is a deer tick, female deer tick. The testing service said it had been embedded for about 7 hours. They do PCR analysis on it, and it's free of Lyme disease. But I'm actually sort of wondering about whether it would be useful or interesting to sort of do a tick survey, and actually, Cutter makes these test kits. They're $35. I got it from Amazon, and we could actually go out and collect ticks on our trails, particularly in the grassy areas there, and just send them in. Let's see what type of diseases come
Pathogens
back.
are there.
Gosh,
And
Chuck, I
that's
do everything I
like-
can to avoid them, I don't wanna go get them.
It's okay, it's fun.
Away from
That's,
You got a crazy idea of fun.
but Chuck, that's the kind of, project, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's the kind of project that you could ask for funding for, right? That would be
Yes, I would
along those
also do it in
lines?
conjunction with the advisory board of health.
Right.
That was one of my questions. Does the Board of Health actually do this kind of monitoring, or is it,
I don't think so, but it's an interesting project, and, but you would want an epidemiologist kind of guiding it in some ways.
I mean, I could have actually done that in my lab when I had my lab, but it's cheap. And actually, what they did, you said send the tick in this little plastic bag that they give you, you mail it in.
That's actually something we should probably get
And,
doctors to do.
Yeah. Of course, they send you back a letter saying, well, it's this kind of tick and this kind of tick, and we'll test it for the disease and give you the results in a day. But if you'd like to know about all these other diseases for $150, you can get that too. So,
But it's good to be cautious, because we forget that.
but, at least be cautious. Tuck in your pant legs into your socks. Wear light-colored socks and clothing, and then spray deep all up down your legs.
They find my dogs, that's all I know.
Yeah.
Not to extend this conversation too long, but do they want you sending in live ticks or dead ticks?
You can send them in live. I mean, it's sealed in a plastic bag, but
What if the-
don't squash it. They won't be able to identify it until they do the PCR analysis.
Imagine if like the package opens and now your poor package carrier is covered in ticks that have now.
We actually have found a deer tick on our dog as well, but that was dead because the dog takes a pill that
Yeah, well,
But
kills
that's
the
a
tick.
really good project, actually. That would be a good one to put together a proposal, talk to Board of Health, see if we can get funding for it from OSAC maybe. Like, that's a great idea. I think that's awesome.
I guess the other thing is, maybe we should look at our tick warning signs,
Yeah,
and post, that are posted at the trailheads here, and make sure they have instructions.
Prevent Lyme disease. Wear repellent, check for ticks, daily shower soon after being outdoors, call your doctor if you get fever or rash.
I would say tuck your pant legs into your socks as well. That's one of the best preventions you can have, along with the deep.
Anything else? Who wants to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.